Chapter 1. In the hospital. In the empty and quiet corridor, faint cries could be heard from the toilet. F***ck, be quiet. Do you want to end up like that B***tch? The greasy middle-aged man kicked the girl who was curled up on the ground and cursed with a twisted expression. With that said, no one noticed that the stiff fingers of the other unconscious girl in the toilet suddenly trembled. Bae-yunj, who had a splitting headache, opened her eyes in the next second and a cold glint flashed in them. However, she found herself in an unfamiliar place. Where was this? She wasn't dead. It was Bae-yunj's first time encountering such a strange thing. Then, before she could familiarize herself with the environment, the director beside her suddenly noticed her. Oh, the little B***tch is awake. The director's fat face was filled with a sinister smile. He abandoned the girl who was barely dressed and walked towards Bae-yunj. This Bae-yunj sounded much better than the others. Hearing this, Bae-yunj felt a strange sense of familiarity when she saw this scene. A bold guess rose in her heart. Who are you? Bae-yunj. Are you still pretending to have lost your memory? Didn't you call yourself the Chin family's eldest young lady 2 days ago? You have so many tricks up your sleeves. The director sneered darkly. However, Bae-yunj's expression became even more interesting when she heard this. She knew why this scene was so familiar. Wasn't this the plot of the anti-social romance novel that the secretary had shown her before? The reason why she said that it was antisocial was because although this book was a refreshing novel, the female lead, Chin Yo-jiao, had a vengeful personality. As long as someone was not convinced by her, their reputation would be ruined. On the other hand, Bae-yunj, who had the same name as her, was the character with the lowest presence in the novel. She grew up in an orphanage and was introverted and autistic, but she yearned for kinship. When she was 17 years old, Bae-yunj returned to the Chin family as the real daughter who had been swapped. At first, Bae-yunj thought that she had 3 older brothers, but she didn't expect that the fake daughter had already replaced her position. Her brothers were cold and disdainful towards her, only treating the female lead, Chin Yo-jiao, as their biological younger sister. For the past 2 years, Bae-yunj had seen with her own eyes how Chin Yo-jiao was treated like a princess by her brothers and doted on. She was just an ugly duckling and couldn't compare to Chin Yo-jiao in any way. Because she was jealous of Chin Yo-jiao and said that Chin Yo-jiao had snatched everything from her. She was looked down upon by her brothers. But in reality, Chin Yo-jiao was the ruthless one. On the surface, she looked innocent, but every day, she led the Chin brothers to insinuate that Bae-yunj was mentally unstable and overly paranoid. Even Bae-yunj being sent to the mental hospital this time was arranged by Chin Yo-jiao. She let her brothers see the crazy Bae-yunj and push her down the stairs. In the end, they had no choice but to send Bae-yunj to a mental hospital. But what he didn't expect was that this was an illegal hospital, and the director liked to molest young girls. Thinking back, Bae-yunj couldn't help but sneer. This kind of female lead could even be called the Black Lotus female lead, who wanted to take revenge. After recalling the plot, Bae-yunj could only accept reality, but she didn't panic at all. Her dry and hoarse voice was tinged with a bone-piercing chill. Did you injure my leg? This sudden question stunned the director, but soon he laughed coldly. Is there something wrong with the little B***tch's brain? You still think you're the eldest young lady of the Chin family? Why don't you take a look at yourself? With that said, the director was about to pull her when he saw the person in front of him stand up slowly. It was as if she didn't feel any pain. Then you'll have to compensate me. Bae-yunj's eyes were bright and charming, but there was a hint of ruthlessness in them. This unreadable expression made one's scalp turn numb. The director almost thought that he had seen a ghost. The girl in front of him seemed to have changed into a different person. She didn't look like that timid and autistic Bae-yunj at all. Have you thought about which leg to exchange for? The girl's words were like a death sentence, but it made the director sober up in a moment. What the hell? How could a silly little girl put on an act and scare him? How dare you scare me? Little B***tch, see how I'll deal with you. Chapter 2. At this moment, Bae-yunj, who had not moved an inch, suddenly turned sideways when the hospital director pounced on her. At that moment, the hospital director lost control of his fat body and fell forward. He fell flat on his face. It was a tragic scene. Useless. Bae-yunj glanced at him and sneered softly. Then, she walked to the side and bent down to pick up the dagger that the hospital director had used to cut the girl's clothes. At this moment, the hospital director's bones hurt from the fall. Before he could retract his fierce expression, he suddenly saw Bae-yunj playing with the dagger. Instantly, he felt a chill run down his spine. What are you trying to do? The hospital director's face was full of panic. When he came to his senses, he quickly took out his cell phone. Do you want to see if my dagger is faster or if I'm faster? Bae-yunj bent one knee slightly and looked at him at eye level. Her leg was still bleeding, but the girl looked as if it had nothing to do with her. She was like a person who had crawled out of hell. The hospital director's body was already weak. He looked at the dagger in Bae-yunj's hand and saw that it was aimed at his throat. Bae-yunj, murder is illegal. Hearing this beast talk to her about the law, Bae-yunj had a mocking look on her face. Then she laughed lazily. But I'm sick. When the hospital director heard this, his whole body stiffened. Miss Pei, I know I'm wrong. Please. The hospital director's back was drenched in cold sweat. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly wailed in pain. Soon after, I've thought about it. It's the third leg. Bae-yunj's lips curled up. Her pleasant voice was unbridled and casual. The dagger in her hand was already stained with blood. And the hospital director. At this moment, he was painfully covering his crotch. His fat body was trembling as it stained red. Until the girl left. Only then did he make a phone call with trembling hands. Jiao, Bae-yunj is running away. She's a lunatic. You must avenge your father. His eyes were bloodshot, and his tone was filled with hatred as he gnashed his teeth. The hospital was in chaos. The security guards were searching everywhere. Have you found her? Don't let her escape. No one expected that a young lady would be able to cripple the school head and escape. It was so evil. Downstairs, Bae-yunj, who had avoided being searched, covered her bleeding wound. Her face was pale. She looked up and saw that it was raining outside. Her back was in a sorry state. She lowered her head and chuckled, casually wiping the blood off her dagger. Her charming eyes were cold and ruthless. If that's the case, let's have some fun then. Suddenly, a howling sound came from somewhere. Bae-yunj turned around and saw a familiar white figure running happily in the rain. Ergu. Bae-yunj suddenly thought of the only character she liked in the novel. She blurted it out subconsciously, but to her surprise, the white shadow actually stopped. It seemed to be searching for a target, and finally locked onto Bae-yunj, who was downstairs. Awoo! It howled excitedly at the sky. Bae-yunj had a bad feeling when she heard that. As expected. The next moment, she saw the snow-white Alaskan Malamute running towards her, howling excitedly. Bae-yunj couldn't even dodge in time, and was pushed to the ground. Her entire body hurt from the fall. However, a certain fellow who didn't want his life was rubbing against her drenched body. His black dog eyes filled with joy. This was the Alaskan Malamute that the supporting female lead Bae-yunj had raised for several years. Later, it was beaten to death because it bit Qin Yojiao. Bae-yunj resisted the urge to scold the dog, but there were still doubts in her heart. Suddenly, an overjoyed exclamation trailed from not too far away. Master Du, I found it. Alaskan Malamute is there. Chapter 3. The man's figure was tall and straight, and his legs under his suit pants were slender and too abstinent. When he came closer, Bae-yunj saw his face clearly. His eyes were deep and cold, and a little lazy. His light-colored pupils showed alienation, but the corners of his eyes were inexplicably seductive. But at this moment, his unwavering gaze fell on her body. Suddenly, look over there. She's over there. Behind him, a burly man with a baton in his hand ran over menacingly. However, when they noticed the man in front of Bae-yunj, they subconsciously stopped. He looked lazy, and just by standing there casually, he gave people a sense of oppression. Sir, this is a patient in our hospital. If there's nothing else, I'll take her away first. One of the security guards walked out and said nervously, Sir, can you help me call the police? This hospital is molesting underage patients. Bei Yunj didn't remember there was someone called Master Du here, so she simply looked up and said. At this time, if the man helped her call the police, it would be the easiest solution. But if it was a nest of snakes and rats? Bei Yunj's eyes flashed with a dark light, and she clenched the dagger in her hand. Sir, she's a mental patient. Don't listen to her nonsense. The security guard panicked and immediately said, Hurry up and take her away. After saying that, Bei Yunj clenched the dagger and waited for the security guard to come closer, but suddenly a figure blocked her way. Sir, you. The security guard's heart tightened and he was about to stop him, but he was stopped by the man's assistant. At this moment, Bei Yunj looked up and accidentally looked into the man's eyes, which were so dark that even the light was hidden. Sir, this hospital. What, sir? He smiled casually, suddenly stretched out his slender index finger, and tapped her forehead. His magnetic voice was casual and playful. Come, call me brother. When this brother was said in a low voice, it was more like flirting. The warmth of the fingertip on her forehead made Bei Yunj's brain freeze for a long time before she reacted. Was she being teased? Not only Bei Yunj, but even Hoshida's assistant Sung turned around in disbelief. Was Master Du possessed by some deity? He had been cold and abstinent for more than 20 years, and now he was molesting patients in a mental hospital. But this girl was a little too strange, wasn't she? Her face was colorful, and those who didn't know would think that her name was Yi-chun. Suddenly, Big brother, can you take me away? The girl curled her lips in a flirtatious manner, but her eyes were clear and seductive. But the thing in his hand was clenched tightly. The man's pale-colored pupils were deep, and his indifferent eyes were still unfeeling. Without waiting for her to react, he suddenly took the dagger from her hand. This little guy was really bold. Bei Yunj stared at the man who was squatting in front of her. You, Sung-soo, call the police. After the man finished speaking slowly, the security guard began to panic. Sir, you believe the words of a lunatic? As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, the sound of a police siren came from the door. What's going on? Someone asked anxiously. They hadn't called the police yet, right? The people in the hospital looked panicked, and it was a mess. Sung-soo, bring the dog back. Assistant Sung nodded and wanted to pick up the leash, but Alaskan suddenly howled at him, giving him a fright. Ergu, come here. Hearing her voice, Alaskan obediently went over and rubbed against her. Its eyes were bright, and it rolled on her lap, wanting her to touch its belly. Seeing this, Assistant Sung immediately understood. It turned out that the Alaskan that little young master had picked up was not a stray dog, but this girl's pet. Chapter 4. Inexplicably, the atmosphere was tense and the bodyguards did not dare to breathe. Why did this lady sound like she was saying that Master Du was a robber? But the next moment, they were even more surprised. After the man threw the dagger into the rubbish bin, he said slowly, Sung-soo, remember to flatten this piece of land. Ah, yes. Assistant Sung quickly replied. Hearing this, the other people in the hospital were shocked and felt a chill down their spines. It's over. This time, they had really kicked a metal plate. And Bei Yunj had a strange premonition that after dealing with this hospital, she might be the next one, then. Just as Bei Yunj was about to raise her head, she suddenly smelled a cold and pleasant scent around her. It was unique and invasive. Then, before she could react, the world spun and she bumped into a warm chest. Through the thin shirt, his scorching temperature and heartbeat made her blush. Bei Yunj's expression changed and she instinctively hugged the man's neck, as if she was afraid of falling. This reaction made the man a little happy. Soon, Bei Yunj heard Hoshida's low and magnetic voice teasing and flirting. What are you afraid of? Brother's waist is very good. What are you doing? Her smile faded. From the first time she saw him, she felt that this man was too dangerous and not easy to get close to. But she did not expect this man's behavior to be so unpredictable. Didn't you want to go home with your brother? Hoshida's expression was calm as he gestured for Bei Yunj to take the umbrella, and was ready to carry her away. This scene left Assistant Sung and the bodyguards dumbfounded. What was going on with Master Du? Was he really going to kidnap her? However, just as Hoshida walked to the door, he suddenly heard someone fly into a rage. Where is she? Let me tell you, if my sister is missing, you can prepare to go to jail for the rest of your lives. Hearing the voice, Bei Yunj turned and saw Qin Lang's handsome and fierce face. With the man's silver-gray hair and outstanding appearance, Bei Yunj guessed that this was her third brother based on the description in the novel. He was a popular esports player in the country who had just won the World League and was leading the team back to the country. At this moment, Qin Lang didn't have time to restrain the anger on his face before he saw his sister looking at him coldly. Yun Yun. Qin Lang's throat was dry, but before he could finish, Bei Yunj saw a man who looked like Qin Lang and a pretty girl not far away. Bei Yunj sneered. Those who shouldn't be here are all here? All of them? At first, Qin Lang was still confused, but when he turned around, he saw his eldest brother and Qin Yojiao rushing over. Big brother, aren't you going to take me home? Bei Yunja's red lips curled up as she leaned intimately against Huashida's ear in front of Qin Lang. Qin Lang. This wasn't right. Shouldn't it be that his little sister would run to him and ask for a hug at this moment? Why did a wild man suddenly appear, hug his sister, and be sweetly called brother by her? Why was this development different from his previous life? Could it be that he had come too early after his rebirth? Qin Lang's eyes reddened when he saw Bei Yunj being hugged. He clenched his fists subconsciously. He had never hugged Gu'er like this before. However, seeing Qin Lang's expression, Bei Yunj thought that he was going to mock and ridicule her again. So she turned her face away and ignored him. This appearance made Qin Lang feel as if the world was falling apart. What happened to his Gu'er? Third brother, is Bei Yunj all right? Suddenly, a delicate voice sounded. Bei Yunj frowned instinctively. At this moment, she didn't know what happened to the man who was hugging her, but he suddenly walked away. This also made the person who came unable to see the man's figure clearly, let alone know that this was the rumored president of the Hua Corporation. Gu. Before Qin Lang could speak, Qin Yojiao grabbed his hand. Third brother, forget it. She just wants to attract your attention. Chapter 5. But she really doesn't know her limits. Third brother, you've just returned and you're already so worried. Is there a need to fight for favor like this? Seeing Qin Yojiao's disdainful expression, Qin Lang's knuckles turned white. In his previous life, the Qin family treated Qin Yojiao as the apple of their eye and abandoned Gu'er. Later, because she offended someone, her family was destroyed. However, what he found most ironic was that Qin Yojiao, who they treated as their biological sister, actually ran away with the jewelry they had bought for her. However, Gu'er, who had never been doted on, took on the responsibility of taking care of them without a word, making them regret it. Qin Lang took a deep breath. Why are you here? Qin Yojiao bit her lip. Third brother, the head of this hospital is my biological father after all. I heard that Bei Yunj hurt my father. With that said, Qin Yojiao thought that Qin Lang would definitely comfort her like before and ask eldest brother to move Bei Yunj further away. However, at this moment, Qin Lang, who had been reborn, did not want to talk nonsense with Qin Yojiao at all. All he could think of was that his Gu'er was going to run away with another man. He said impatiently, then go and take care of him. Qin Yojiao's expression froze. She did not expect Qin Lang to speak to her like this. Third brother. Qin Yojiao was about to speak when Qin Lang had already run towards the place where Bei Yunj had left. However, he did not expect her to be gone. In the car. Alas! The moment Bei Yunj got into the car, she noticed a cute little thing wearing a vest beside her. His exquisite eyes were somewhat similar to the man opposite her. See it for the last time. Huashidu wiped the back of his hand carelessly. Why? Sob, alas, what's wrong with you? The cute little thing's sobbing was pitiful as he hugged the wet alas. Little young master, alas is this lady's pet. Seeing that little young master's eyes were red from crying, Assistant Sung couldn't bear to say. Hearing this, the cute little thing looked up and stared unblinkingly at Bei Yunj. Just as Bei Yunj was guessing if the cute little thing was this man's son, he said something shocking. Sister, I'll give my brother to you. Don't take Alice with you, okay? The cute little thing sniffed. Bei Yunj. Were dogs worth so much now? The atmosphere was still tense. Assistant Sung couldn't help but be afraid that Master Du would directly throw the young master out of the car. The CEO of the Hua Corporation was traded for a pet. I dare you to say that again. Huashida glanced at him casually. If the old madam hadn't pestered him to find a match, he wouldn't have come out to look for the dog himself. When the cute little thing heard this, it hugged Alice tightly and its eyes turned red with grievance. His brother really didn't love him at all. After that, the cute little thing saw Bei Yunj from the corner of her eye and looked up. Sister, I'll go with you too. Anyway, the dog was here and the person was here. Before Bei Yunj could say anything, she heard the man speak indifferently. Sing Su, stop the car. Take him back to the old house. The cute little thing couldn't believe it. Big brother, you're burning the river after crossing the bridge. The man sneered and said slowly, add 2 more lessons for the Chinese language class every week. Probably because the cute little thing was too pitiful, Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and rubbed Alyssa's head. Accompany the little kid for a while more. I'll pick you up in a few days. Alice rubbed against Bei Yunj reluctantly. After looking at the cute little thing, it followed them. Not long after, there were only 2 people left in the car. Chapter 6. When he saw her, he saw that she had a guarded expression on her face. Indeed, he was more interested in teasing this little fellow. But somehow, when he saw this guy turn his face away coldly, as if he didn't want to care about her family, he actually brought her out. This was a rare impulse of his. Brother, if you're busy, you can put me down on the road. Bei Yunj's eyes were clear, but she could feel that this was a wild and impudent person. In her opinion, she already owed this man a favor for bringing her out. She did not expect him to take care of her trouble. The man's low and lazy voice was even colder than the sound of the silver lighter in his hand. I have to be responsible for the little girl who ran away from home. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's heart skipped a beat. Such a man was not the male lead? Then why could that Cheng Zihuai be the male lead? Was it because he was perverted enough? With this thought in mind, before Bei Yunj could come back to her senses, her body was suddenly lifted into the air and she was picked up again. Bei Yunj subconsciously wrapped her arms around the man's neck twice. Her expression was not very good, especially when she saw the happy smile on the man's face. She was not stingy with her bright smile. Brother, you must be in a relationship very quickly, right? What she meant was that Hoshidu would definitely be dumped very quickly. Who would think? The man's casual appearance was lazy and sexy, but the words he said made her blush and her heart beat faster. Other men might be very fast, but I'm only swift and fierce. Bei Yunj. In the hotel. In the presidential suite. Bei Yunj was placed on the sofa by the man. However, when Bei Yunj looked around, she realized that there were rose petals arranged in a heart shape on the bed not far away. Change into this first. Huashidu walked over and casually threw the clothes to Bei Yunj before sitting at the side, until he turned around and realized that Bei Yunj was looking at the bathrobe in her hand. After a while, she looked at him meaningfully. Seeing this, the man couldn't help but chuckle, and suddenly he slowly moved closer to her. His deep and magnetic voice seemed to have a scorching temperature. Little kid, if I were a bad person, you wouldn't be sitting on the sofa. You would be sitting on Big Brother's lap. After that, just as he was about to call the hotel service to deal with it, there was a knock on the door. Master Du? Old Madame Ho said you haven't had dinner yet, so she asked me to bring you some. Upon hearing this, even Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows. How could such a high-class hotel not provide dinner service? This was clearly an ulterior motive. Do you need me to go to the bathroom? Bei Yunj was very tactful. After all, it was an elder's kind intentions. However, Washida looked at her with a faint smile. If you were a little younger, perhaps you could be my daughter for once. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. This man was at most 4 or 5 years older than him. Washida saw from the corner of his eye that her clothes were wet. Do you want to take a shower? Bei Yunj saw that she was a little dirty and thought that Washida felt that her body was dirty. Okay. She nodded and walked slowly into the bathroom. Master Du, are you there? The man heard the persistent knocking on the door, but took out a cigarette from the cigarette box. Not long after, white smoke lingered. Chapter 7. Until the bathroom door opened. Only then did the man realize it. He put out the cigarette in his hand and looked up. However, he did not expect the girl who walked in to look like a different person. She was wearing a bathrobe. Her waist was slender, and her fair legs were a little swaying. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be born with an unruly aura, but her eyes were beautiful and clear. It made Hoshida feel that as long as she pretended to be obedient, no one would bear to scold her for doing anything bad. Are you going to wash up? Bae-yunj wiped her hair, and was quite satisfied with her appearance. She turned her head and noticed that the man's pants were also wet. Yes. Hoshida retracted his gaze and replied in a low voice, "Don't let anyone in. A female staff member will come over later." Bae-yunj looked at him again. "Okay, thank you." Before she was reborn, there were many outstanding family heirs around her who did not covet women, but none of them rejected her as directly as Hoshida. It even made Bae-yunj suspect that he might have been hurt in love. Impossible. Bae-yunj quickly dispelled this thought. Even though she was said to be picky, she still felt that this man was a sniper for her sexual orientation. He was completely in line with her aesthetic point. Then before Bae-yunj could think, there was a sudden sound at the door. She turned around and saw a female staff member walking in. Behind him, there was a woman in stilettos and a tight-fitting skirt who looked elegant and beautiful. "Miss, I'll go out first." The staff member avoided her gaze, casually placed her clothes on the table, and walked out. Then as soon as the door closed, Bae-yunj heard the woman's unfriendly tone. "Who are you?" Bae-yunj turned her face sideways. In the woman's eyes, her beautiful eyebrows and eyes were still filled with laziness after the incident. The woman clenched her fists. Didn't they say that Master Du did not like women? Then what was wrong with this woman? To think that she was overjoyed when old Madame Hu chose her from a group of socialites. She was furious. She felt that Bae-yunj had intercepted her. "Do you know who I am?" The woman suppressed her anger. If she was not afraid that Hoshida might appear, she would have slapped this woman a few times. "I don't know." Bae-yunj closed her eyes lazily and didn't want to say anything. However, in the eyes of the woman, this expression was a kind of silent showing off. Especially now. The girl was lying on the sofa. Her face was still a little pale. She looked sick, as if she had been bullied badly. Shameless. The woman gritted her teeth. After calming down, she smiled hypocritically. "Little girl, do you know how old you are? That's big sister's boyfriend. This behavior of getting a room with someone else's boyfriend." Before she could finish, Bae-yunj looked up at her. If he hadn't heard it clearly just now, he would have really believed this woman. "So," she asked, her emotions unclear, "do you know what kind of women men like? There are still differences between women and girls." She took out a few hundred yuan and said with a smile, He was just being greedy for something new. Little girl you." Before the woman could finish, she saw the person sitting on the sofa stand up. Bae-yunj didn't look at her. Instead, she took off her bathrobe. Not long after, the bathrobe landed on the ground. Her graceful and delicate body almost made the woman's face burn with pain. She clenched the money that she had wanted to use to humiliate Bae-yunj. Bae-yunj chuckled and her beautiful eyes curled up. She said slowly, "Big brother nowadays is so good at it." You. Chapter 8. If you're not leaving, are you planning to stay and take off your clothes? Bae-yunj smirked with interest. The woman bit her lip and left angrily. It was not that she did not dare, but in comparison, it would be embarrassing if she took off her clothes. After the woman left, Bae-yunj changed her clothes and slowly applied the red medicine. A few minutes later, Hoshida walked out and smelled a choking smell of perfume. Did someone come in? His eyes darkened. They've already left. After Bae-yunj treated her wound, she said with a smile, "However, older brother might have to explain it properly when he goes back." Seeing that her wound was bandaged strangely, Hoshida walked in front of her and for the first time, lowered his status to bandage someone's wound. "I didn't expect you to do anything good." The young lady looked restless. Bae-yunj suddenly felt that she should have told that woman that the bathroom was unlocked. "What's your name?" Hoshida was skilled in bandaging the wound, and the result was good. Bae-yunj. Hearing this, the man smirked and looked up with a hint of laziness. My name is Hwashidu. I'll leave my phone number with you. Rest early. It was a light night. Bae-yunj saw a note on the coffee table. The handwriting was strong. There were a few hundred yuan under it. Not only did she owe someone a favor, she also owed someone money. Thinking of her current situation, Bae-yunj felt that it would be difficult to repay this favor. After leaving the hotel, although Bae-yunj did not like the Chin family, she still took a taxi to go there. In the Chin family villa, on the sofa, a handsome young man in a simple white t-shirt was smoking impatiently. He looked vexed. Yesterday he actually cared about talking to Qin Yojiao and let Gu'er leave with someone. However, in his previous life, this hospital was exposed because the daughter of a big shot in the hospital died. After Gu'er was discharged from the hospital, she had already been tortured until she was unrecognizable and had a strange personality. At this thought, Qin Lang remembered that before he was reborn, Gu'er had said, I don't want to be siblings with you in my next life. His hands trembled. The ash from the cigarette made him panic, and he subconsciously looked up. Unexpectedly, her eyes met Bae-yunj's as she walked through the door. Bae-yunj was dressed in a red dress, her hair was black, and her skin was snow-white. She looked very beautiful today. Especially those eyes. The corners of her eyes were red, as if she had stayed up all night, but she was still seductive. Qin Lang clenched his fists. His eyes were wet and hot. He had almost forgotten how beautiful his song was. Before he went bankrupt, he knew nothing about Gu'er. After he went bankrupt, he knew that Gu'er was pretty, but he couldn't even afford to buy her a lipstick. She could only watch as she worked 3 jobs and dressed shabbily. Song, brother. My piano room is too sunny. You said that you would let Bae-yunj change her bedroom with mine. Anyway, it's about the same. Qin Yojiao's expression was arrogant as she interrupted Qin Lang with a bright smile and hugged his arm coquettishly. Immediately, Qin Lang's handsome face froze. He actually agreed to do such a thing. Before he could say anything, he saw Bae-yunj's red lips curl up. Sure, I'm going to live on campus. With that said, it was only then that Qin Yojiao noticed the person beside her. However, when she saw Bae-yunj's appearance clearly, her eyes widened. This woman was Bae-yunj. Impossible. Why did she become like this? Can you get used to living on campus? Qin Lang's voice was dry as he asked unnaturally. Hearing this, even Qin Yojiao was stunned. Didn't third brother hate Bae-yunj the most and find her annoying? Did third brother think that Bae-yunj would be more annoyed if he moved around because he couldn't get used to the dormitory? At this thought, Qin Yojiao's expression looked much better. Chapter 9. Qin Lang was about to speak when he saw Bae-yunj going upstairs. He felt that ever since his Gu'er came out of the hospital, she had been ignoring him. Qin Lang pursed his lips and was about to go upstairs when he was pulled back. Third brother, where are you going? Qin Yojiao felt inexplicably uneasy. She had a feeling that third brother and eldest brother were abnormal recently, and were very cold to her. But before, she was the only one who ignored them, and they had to coax her. Help Gu'er tidy up. Qin Lang furrowed his eyebrows and pulled Qin Yojiao's hand down from his arm. Seeing his cold expression and refusal to interact with her, Qin Yojiao's mind started to become confused, and she only felt aggrieved. When did third brother start to care about Bae-yunj? Third brother had clearly said that she was the most important sister in his heart. Third brother, is Bae-yunj more important or am I more important? Qin Yojiao acted as usual and pestered him endlessly. If it was in the past, Qin Lang would immediately coax her. But now Qin Lang, on the other hand, sneered as if he had heard something ridiculous. She's my biological sister. These words were like 1,000 pounds, smashing her awake, and she was in disbelief. What did third brother mean? He couldn't be like this all of a sudden. Did third brother know that she had deliberately faked her fall that time? No, this must have something to do with Bae-yunj. A trace of coldness flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes, but she stopped Qin Lang on the surface. Third brother, I'll go and help her. It's not good to enter a girl's room. Perhaps thinking of Bae-yunj's attitude towards him now, Qin Lang really stopped in his tracks. Seeing this, Qin Yojiao bit her lip and hid her unwilling ruthlessness as she went upstairs quickly. It must be this Bei Yunj. On the second floor, Bei Yunj pushed open the dark room. It was extremely dusty inside, and she could even smell the smell of garlic water. She glanced at the exorcism talismans around her, and her eyes were filled with sarcasm. It was because Qin Yojiao had casually said to the servant that Bei Yunj must have been possessed. In order to please Qin Yojiao, they pasted these all over her room and sprinkled garlic water every day. They didn't care if the original owner would break down if she saw these. Bei Yunj narrowed her eyes, turned on the lights, and found her school uniform. Bei Yunj, it seems like you don't remember the pain at all. Since Qin Lang wasn't around, Qin Yojiao couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore. She crossed her arms and smirked coldly. Do you think that by living in the Qin family you can change the way your brothers treat you? Wishful thinking? Who knew, this time, Bei Yunj did not purse her lips and remain silent like before. Her eyes were flirtatious as she leisurely asked, "Then what are you afraid of?" Nonsense. Qin Yojiao's eyes turned cold when her thoughts were exposed. Before she gritted her teeth, she walked up to Bei Yunj and said playfully, "If I can get my brothers to send you to the mental hospital once, I can do it again. In my brothers' hearts, you can't even compare to a single strand of my hair. Even if I did it on purpose. I almost forgot. I haven't settled the score with you yet." Before Qin Yojiao could finish speaking, she was suddenly interrupted by Bei Yunj. What? Qin Yojiao watched as Bei Yunj looked up. However, there was an inexplicable coldness in her sparkling eyes. She licked her lips and smirked. "Have you forgotten why I was sent there?" Qin Yojiao panicked inexplicably and stepped back instinctively. However, Bei Yunj grabbed her hand even faster. "If you dare to touch me, third brother will throw you out of the Qin family. That sounds quite tempting." With that said. Chapter 10. A thought appeared in her mind. Crazy. After Bei Yunj entered the mental hospital, she had really gone crazy. Qin Yojiao's pretty face paled. Before she could react, she was grabbed by the collar again, and watched as Bei Yunj opened the door. From the beginning to the end, she had been dragged away by Bei Yunj. "Third brother, save me. Bei Yunj is crazy." Qin Yojiao's pathetic scream attracted even the servants in the courtyard. Hearing this, Qin Lang's handsome face turned cold, and he walked into the living room. "Bei Yunj, what are you doing? Let go of elder young miss, you ingrate." When the chubby middle-aged maid saw Qin Lang walking in with a cold expression, she immediately pointed at Bei Yunj and scolded her. Bei Yunj's smile was ambiguous. It was a pity that this female lead was not that capable. She had a dream last night. She dreamed that the original owner of the body had lived for a few years until she died tragically on the streets. Even a person like her, who had never been sympathetic, could feel the oppression and heart-wrenching pain of the original owner of the body's life. Bei Yunj hooked Qin Yojiao's chin with one hand, her every word exceptionally terrifying. "Don't say that I dare to push you. If I'm unhappy, I can even bury you alive." With that said, Qin Yojiao had just screamed when she was suddenly kicked in the back of her knee. She rolled down from the second floor. Seeing this, the servants in the house widened their eyes. Was that Bei Yunj? Why was this piece of trash so bold? She actually dared to do this in front of them. "It hurts, third brother." Qin Yojiao lay on the floor, her face pale as she furrowed her eyebrows. After regaining her senses, a bright light flashed past Aunt Huang's eyes and she said fiercely, "Hurry and catch this B***tch. As long as she chased this bastard Bei Yunj out this time, elder young miss would definitely remember her good deeds, and would not make the young masters annoyed again. At this thought, Aunt Huang twisted her voluptuous body and ran in front of Bei Yunj, raising her hand to slap her. However, he didn't expect to be caught by that fair and slender hand so easily. Nanny Huang panicked. She didn't expect to meet Bei Yunj's cold eyes. Her lips were still curled up. Why did this trash bastard seem like a completely different person? His eyes were so terrifying. "You B***tch, if you don't let go of me, I'll tear your fox face apart." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone heard the crisp sound of a slap. They looked in disbelief at the second miss, who was usually so submissive that she didn't even dare to raise her head. Everyone knew that Auntie Huang's unreasonable personality was difficult to deal with. In addition, Auntie Huang had taken care of Qin Youjiao for a few years, so she was considered a servant with a higher status in the Qin family. If anyone offended her, she would definitely take revenge on them. In the past, Bei Yunj was most afraid of Auntie Huang other than the Qin brothers. She actually slapped Mother Huang today. Before everyone could react, they heard Bei Yunj's lazy and intimidating voice. Have you forgotten who you are? Is it your turn to behave atrociously? At this moment, the air froze unconsciously. Soon Qin Lang's voice sounded again. Who are you? Third brother, my hand hurts. Qin Youjiao interrupted Qin Lang. Qin Lang turned around and noticed Qin Youjiao lying on the floor. He had no choice but to deal with Qin Youjiao first. What are you waiting for? Send her upstairs quickly and get the doctor to come over. Qin Lang's expression darkened. If anything happened to Qin Youjiao, who knew how he would frame Gu'er later? Chapter 11. So what if she didn't know why her brother was angry? Her brother still cared about her the most. Third elder brother, will I be able to use my hands? I still have a piano performance in a few days. Qin Youjiao asked with a sobbing voice. The Qin family had invested a lot in nurturing Qin Youjiao. She was only 19 years old, and had already held a national piano tour. She was the most enviable talented girl in the industry. After all, Qin Youjiao was still young and had a bright future. Why aren't you bringing her up? Qin Lang's handsome face was filled with coldness. For some reason, the servants felt that third young master was a little impatient with elder young miss today. This thought disappeared in a flash, and the servant quickly helped Qin Youjiao upstairs. Just as Qin Youjiao was thinking about it with a dark expression. If it was in the past, third brother would definitely carry her upstairs personally. But now suddenly, Auntie Huang's words entered her ears. Young master, Bei Yunj is too evil. She must have done this to elder young miss on purpose. Instantly, Qin Youjiao understood. Third brother must have wanted to stay and punish Bei Yunj to vent her anger for her. Sweetness filled Qin Youjiao's heart. Indeed, third brother was the best to her. After Qin Youjiao went upstairs in peace, the living room was in a different situation. Young master, this lunatic is going to break my hand. Auntie Huang pretended to be abused by Bei Yunj and howled. Seeing this, Bei Yunj licked her lips. In the next second, Auntie Huang's scream made one's scalp turn numb. Then, the young girl's words sounded slowly. Isn't it easy to break your hand? Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. What was wrong with this second young miss recently? Was she really possessed? Why did she seem like the reincarnation of a demon? Young master, help. This lunatic just can't stand elder young miss doing well, and is taking it out on me on purpose. Seeing Qin Lang, Auntie Huang screamed even more miserably. When Qin Lang saw this, it took him a long time to realize that this was his biological sister. After going through the mental hospital in his previous life, Gu'er's personality had changed, but she was like a completely different person from the Gu'er in front of him. Auntie Huang, what did you call Gu'er? A fierce look appeared in Qin Lang's eyes. Was this how they had humiliated Gu'er in the past? Thinking of how well Aunt Huang treated Qin Youjiao, Qin Lang only wanted to laugh coldly. Did they forget who was the Qin family's eldest young miss? Aunt Huang was stunned. She did not expect Qin Lang to ask this. She explained, Young master, she was the one who pushed Missy down the stairs. We all saw it. That's why I wanted to stop her. Qin Lang's gaze became even colder. You're just a servant. How dare you call my sister a lunatic? Hearing this, Bei Yunj frowned slightly. What was wrong with him today? She let go of Aunt Huang and looked at him with an indifferent expression. You don't have to pretend anymore. I won't tell on Qin Youjiao. Then she chuckled and said slowly with interest. After all, I was the one who pushed him. Everyone else was shocked that Bei Yunj seemed to have gone crazy today. She was stepping on the third young master's minefield. Qin Lang froze. He knew why Bei Yunj would say that. The only person in the Qin family who was good to Bei Yunj was the old master. The old master didn't like Qin Yojiao. However, whenever her brothers said something harsh to Bei Yunj in order to protect Qin Yojiao, they would be punished by the family rules. Even Qin Yojiao would not be allowed to enter the old mansion. However, a year later, the old master passed away from a serious illness. Qin Lang's eyes were sore. He didn't want to explain now and only hoped that Bei Yunj wouldn't leave. Chapter 12. If that was the case, he could just chase them all away. Is there anything here that's worth me staying behind? Bei Yunj's casual question made Qin Lang freeze. Without waiting for Qin Lang to think, she said calmly, I'll go pack my things. With that said, Qin Lang instinctively blocked Bei Yunj and quickly came up with an excuse. Guor, the school dormitory application won't be approved in a day or two. Can you wait a little longer? Bei Yunj frowned. What Qin Lang said was true, but she really didn't want to stay in the Qin family at all. Seeing that Bei Yunj was silent, Qin Lang's eyes lit up. His tone was pitiful. Besides, it's Grandpa's birthday soon. Why don't we wait for Grandpa's birthday banquet? When the others saw Qin Lang like this, they were also in disbelief. Was third young master coaxing Bei Yunj? They had never seen third young master coax elder miss like this before. Aunt Huang, whose hand had almost been broken, was even more stunned. She said anxiously, Third young master, that crazy. Bei Yunj almost killed elder miss just now. How could you? Shut up. Qin Lang's eyes were cold and he quickly ordered, Butler, give Aunt Huang her salary for these 3 months and ask her to leave the Qin family. The butler regained his senses and said quickly, yes. However, everyone else felt a chill run down their spines. One had to know that Aunt Huang used to be Qin Yojiao's nanny, and the 3 young masters would give her face. But now, third young master didn't say anything and directly fired him. And it was for Bei Yunj. At this moment, Aunt Huang's eyes widened and her voice was anxious and sharp. Third young master, I'm helping elder miss. Don't you dote on elder miss the most? She's an outsider. Who's an outsider? Qin Lang interrupted her, his handsome face dark. Gu, is my biological sister, the real elder miss of the Qin family. The Qin family doesn't need servants who give their master face. Hearing this, the other servants who had caused trouble for Bei Yunj before shivered slightly. What was going on? Some time ago, the young masters had even sent Bei Yunj to a mental hospital because Qin Yojiao had been pushed down the stairs. But now that the same thing was happening again, the one who was punished was Qin Yojiao's trusted aide? Wasn't this slapping Qin Yojiao's face? Third young master. Mother Huang's face turned pale. She was truly flustered. Butler, call security. Qin Lang did not even spare her a glance. He turned his head and looked at Bei Yunj. His attitude had changed completely. Gu'er, the second floor is too noisy. There's an empty room next to third brother on the 3rd floor. Why don't you stay next to third brother? Qin Lang did not want Qin Yojiao to get close to Bei Yunj at all, in case she treated his Gu'er badly. Moreover, Gu'er was living next to him, so he could repair their relationship as soon as possible. Bei Yunj didn't see the hopeful look in Qin Lang's eyes, so he raised his eyelids. Yes. She had just taken over this body and indeed did not have the ability to leave now. He could only wait for the dormitory application to be completed, return their accommodation fees, and then leave the Qin family. As for the others, they could not believe what was happening in front of them. This was reality. Qin Yojiao had also asked for the room on the 3rd floor before. The lighting was very good, but Qin Lang always avoided the topic and did not agree. Now he actually took the initiative to give it to Bei Yunj. And it felt like he was coaxing and lying. Alarm bells rang in the servants' hearts. The status of the Qin family was probably going to change in the future. Qin Lang followed Bei Yunj upstairs. However, when he entered Bei Yunj's room for the first time, the bright smile that had just appeared on his face instantly disappeared. Gu was staying in such a place? Chapter 13. He had never cared about Gu'er's matters in the past, and had always thought that Gu'er and Qin Yojiao were treated the same in the Qin family. However, he did not expect that their indifference to Gu'er would cause her to receive such treatment. I don't have much either. I'll just move it 2 more times. With that said, Qin Lang immediately went forward and helped Bei Yunj move the heavy items away without a word. Seeing this, Bei Yunj frowned and felt that something was wrong with Qin Lang. However, she did not say anything and just started to pack her necessities. In the bedroom on the second floor, Qin Yojiao had just finished applying medicine and was in a bad mood. Ask Auntie Huang to come over. Eldest young miss, Auntie Huang. The servant's expression was timid. She was chased away by third young master. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao's voice went up a pitch. What did you say? How did this happen? Because Auntie Huang said that second young miss is crazy in front of third young master. The servant lowered her head, afraid that Qin Yojiao would vent her anger on her. Indeed. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao's expression darkened. However, other than anger, there was more panic. Why did third brother suddenly care about Bei Yunj? He had even fired Auntie Huang for Bei Yunj. Wasn't this a blatant slap to her face? Eldest young miss, maybe third young master is good to second young miss because of old master. Old master's illness has worsened this year. Third young master can't quarrel with old master because of you like before. These words made Qin Yojiao's expression turn for the better. She almost forgot about this. Old master has always been someone who only looks at blood relations. It's useless no matter how good I am to him, Qin Yojiao said unwillingly. She looked like the bright and beautiful eldest young miss of the Qin family who was doted on by her three brothers, but in reality, old master had never taken her to those family and friends gatherings. A strange glint flashed past the servant's eyes, and she leaned forward to bow. So, eldest young miss, you have to outshine everyone at old master's birthday banquet to gain his favor. I'm sure you know what second miss is capable of. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao's eyes lit up and the corners of her lips curled up. Yes. She almost forgot that Bei Yunj was a useless piece of trash. She couldn't even deal with a little trouble. However, third brother's attitude towards her today really made her uneasy. Qin Yojiao immediately dismissed these thoughts. No, Bei Yunj had always embarrassed her brothers in the Qin family. How could she compete with her for favor? Soon after he finished moving, Bei Yunj glanced at the spacious and bright room. She looked at Qin Lang, who was breathing heavily, and said in a distant tone, "Thank you. Are you hungry? How about? No need, I want to rest." Bei Yunj's red lips curved, but there was no smile in her eyes. After a while, Qin Lang nodded stiffly. All right, you should rest first. After she left the third floor, a maid came to ask about her. Third young master, what would you like for dinner tonight? Just do as Gu'er likes, Qin Lang said casually. When the servant heard this, she was stunned for a long time and immediately felt awkward. Second miss doesn't seem to like anyone. They had never asked Bei Yunj what she liked to eat. After all, Bei Yunj was not favored by the Qin family. Who would curry favor with a young miss with no status? They had always done it according to eldest young miss's taste. Hearing this, Qin Lang's expression darkened. He thought of the messy things in Bei Yunj's bedroom. He laughed coldly. Does Gu'er not like anything? Or do you not treat her as the young miss of the Qin family? Instantly the servant panicked. Chapter 14. Why third young master? It's not like that. We were only focused on eldest young miss, so we forgot about second young miss. Qin Lang's eyes were filled with coldness as he laughed coldly. Gu'er is my biological younger sister. Have you forgotten? Instead you remember Qin Yojiao? These words made the servant speechless and her face flushed red. What was wrong with third young master? Why was he suddenly so concerned about Bei Yunj? Didn't third young master dislike Bei Yunj the most in the past? In the future, if I find out who doesn't care about Gu'er, get out of the Qin family. Qin Lang's voice was cold and ruthless. The servant shivered and answered in a panic. Third young master, I know I was wrong. I'll ask second young miss what she likes to eat now. Wait a minute. Qin Lang said expressionlessly. Get the butler to find me. The servant immediately reacted. This was probably related to Bei Yunj. In the evening, Bei Yunj's door was knocked by the servants, all of them smiling obsequiously and asking all sorts of questions. However, Bei Yunj was impatient and locked them outside the door. This reaction made the servants tremble in fear. They only felt that third young master was strange just now, but now they realized that this second young miss had become even stranger. They dared not say anything even though they were angry. Wasn't she just relying on third young master's sudden change in personality? Let's see how arrogant she could be when third young master ignored her one day. At night, Qin Lang came to knock on the door again. "Girl, let's go out to eat today." He coughed softly. This way, even if he didn't know Guer's taste, he could let her choose. Anything is fine. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she didn't know when Qin Yojiao had arrived. "Third brother, are you driving us?" Qin Yojiao said coquettishly. Qin Lang's expression darkened. He didn't call Qin Yojiao just now and only instructed the butler to get the car. He only planned to bring Guer. Bei Yunj's eyes curled up. "You guys go ahead. I still need to change. Just send me the address." With that said, Bei Yunj returned to her room. Qin Lang's handsome face darkened. How could he not know that Bei Yunj didn't want to be with them? "Third brother, let's go." Qin Yojiao went forward and held Qin Lang's hand. Qin Lang did not speak, but broke free from Qin Yojiao's arms and walked forward. "How is your father?" A trace of disgust flashed across Qin Yojiao's eyes when she heard this. However, she pretended to be distressed and bit her lip. "Bei Yunj crippled my father in that aspect. After all, he's still my father," Qin Lang sneered. "So what? I won't let him miss any of the necessary procedures." Qin Yojiao's face turned pale. Third brother wanted her father to go to jail. Bei Yunj slowly changed her clothes and found a driver waiting for her at the door. She didn't refuse and got into the car. But at the last intersection, the car suddenly stopped. "Miss, I'm sorry. I saw an old lady suddenly appear in front of us," the driver said nervously. Bei Yunj looked up and saw an old lady sitting on the ground with her hands on her legs. She was acting clumsily. "We're almost there. You can go back." After Bei Yunj got out of the car, she walked up to the old lady with a playful look in her eyes. "Old madam, do you want to go to the hospital?" This old lady wasn't dressed ordinarily, and didn't look like she was a scammer. The old lady narrowed her eyes and after sizing her up seriously, she immediately grabbed her hand. "How about this? If you meet my grandson, I won't ask for your medical fees. What do you think, girl?" It was Bei Yunj's first time encountering such a situation, and her smile gradually disappeared. She smirked. "Old madam, I have a boyfriend." Chapter 15. Then ask your boyfriend to make a call. Old Madame Yang did not believe her. Hearing this, even Bei Yunj chuckled. Her eyes were clear and seductive. "Old Madame Yang, he's working to support me." Old Madame Yang did not give up, so Bei Yunj had no choice but to bring her to a cafe. While old Madame Yang was promoting her grandson, Bei Yunj's aimless gaze happened to catch a glimpse of a figure at the door. She suddenly stood up. "Old Madame Yang, please have a seat first. I'll come later." "Wait, I haven't shown you my grandson's photo yet." Old Madame Yang had just opened the photo album when she saw Bei Yunj walk out. At the door, the little guy, who was dressed like a prince, was chewing on a candy and counting the passing cars. When the little guy sensed movement behind him, his eyes lit up when he turned around and saw the person who was walking towards him. "Sister. Little darling, is your brother around?" The little guy glanced at the restaurant not far away and shook his head frantically. No, he did not have a brother. Bei Yunj smiled even brighter when she heard this. She bent down and coaxed, "Come follow me." After the little guy left with Bei Yunj, the man who had just finished a call with old Madame Yang returned to where the little guy was standing. "Singsu, where's Xiaoemo?" Hearing the man's cold tone, Assistant Sing shivered. "Little master didn't let me follow him just now." In the cafe, just as old Madame Yang was worried that Bei Yunj had secretly run away, she saw that figure return. However, she was holding the little guy's hand. "This is..." Old Madame Yang frowned and hesitated. Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Bei Yunj. She smiled and squatted down to kiss the little guy. "My son." After being kissed, the little fellow's fair and tender face immediately flushed a faint pink, and he became shy. He did not care about what Bei Yunj was saying at all. You have a son at such a young age? Old Madame Yang could not help but raise her voice as she sized up the little guy. She was suspicious. Why doesn't he look like him? He looks like his father. Pei Yunj sat on the sofa and said with a smirk on her face. Hearing this, old Madame Fu still suspected that Pei Yunj was lying to her. The stalemate didn't last long. Mommy, I want to go home, the little boy said softly. Pei Yunj raised her eyebrows and stroked the little boy's head. We'll go home after we send Grandma away. After that, Pei Yunj also ordered a dessert for the little guy to eat first. However, he couldn't help but wonder in his heart, who brought the little guy out? He had actually left it on the road without any adults around. At this moment, a sharp glint flashed across the old lady's eyes. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly paused. If this little guy is your child then, Pei Yunj turned to look at the old lady. The old lady stared blankly into the distance, then subconsciously looked at the little boy beside Pei Yunj. Immediately after, she murmured, similar, this is too similar. Pei Yunj froze. She had a bad feeling. Then, she heard the old lady sigh. But this child's father is not to be picky. Young people know how to seize opportunities. Hearing this, Pei Yunj immediately turned around. She didn't expect to see that cold and noble man walking towards her. Pei Yunj's bright eyes moved slightly, but she did not have time to clarify. She heard the old lady praise, your husband is so good-looking. P.S. Master Pei, you're too kind. Chapter 16. Pei Yunj sensed a gaze from somewhere and said calmly, he's not. The old madam was unhappy. What do you mean he's not? He looks so similar. How can he not be? The man raised his eyebrows slightly, and his gaze moved between Pei Yunj and the little boy. The little boy lowered his head and did not dare to speak. Young man, sit next to your wife. The old madam beckoned enthusiastically. Wife? Huashida's thin eyelids moved slightly as he asked with interest. His voice was so seductive that it made one's heart tremble. Pei Yunj looked at the old madam and chuckled. It's a misunderstanding. Usually, a normal girl would blush in such a situation. However, the girl in front of her proved that as long as she could control the situation, no one would feel awkward. What misunderstanding? The old madam teased, as if she did not expect Pei Yunj to be shy. He's really not. Haven't you registered your marriage yet? The child is already so old. Aren't you going to hurry up? The old madam suddenly remembered that Pei Yunj had said boyfriend previously. Hearing the old madam's shocking words, Pei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, young man, why aren't you sitting next to your wife? Huashidu retracted his gaze and guessed what was going on. He said casually. Okay. Pei Yunj's eardrums itched from this low and deep magnetic voice. Then, she saw Huashidu sitting beside her calmly. Pei Yunj. Were they all so willing to help others now? The old madam lectured again. Young man, this is your fault. Your wife is so beautiful. What if she runs away with someone else? What will you do? The man's thin eyes were filled with playfulness and laziness. Run away? Let's catch her first. Pei Yunj paused. Question mark. The old madam was stunned inside. You young people are so sweet. I know you young people don't like to be restrained, but children still have to be registered. I'll consider it. Hearing Huashidu's words, the old madam nodded in satisfaction. All right, I won't disturb you anymore. Just now, the little kid said that he wanted to go home with mommy, so you should go back early. When the little fellow heard this, he felt a chill at the back of his head. Oh no, her brother was going to teach him a lesson. The man's pale-colored eyes swept over the little fellow as if nothing had happened, and he let out a low chuckle. All right. After the old lady left, the atmosphere of the family of three was silent. They're all pretty good. The man's lazy voice sounded in Pei Yunj's ears. Woo, elder sister, I think I should go home with you. The little fellow hugged Pei Yunj's waist and shivered. Singsu. After Huashidu finished speaking, the assistant beside him tacitly went forward and carried the little fellow away. I brought Mo here. Pei Yunj added. Sorry for the trouble. The girl in front of him looked very obedient. Her eyes were beautiful and innocent, but she was actually a bad person. A short while later, his gaze landed unwaveringly on her body, revealing an inexplicable sense of aggression. Suddenly, he let out a long laugh. He was refined and flirtatious. Were you secretly taking advantage of brother just now? Even Bei Yunja's heart skipped a few beats. She had only been here for 2 days. Why did she bump into this man everywhere she went? Did you fall in love with brother at first sight? The man was cynical and deliberately teased. Chapter 17. The moment he finished speaking, the phone on the table began to ring. Bei Yunj glanced at the caller ID, and a trace of impatience flashed past her eyes. She looked up, her dark eyes bright. Brother, I'm sorry. I still have something on. If there's a chance next time, I'll treat you to a meal. With that said, Bei Yunj picked up her phone and walked out quickly. The man raised his eyebrows. He could tell that the call just now was to urge Bei Yunj. Then Huashidu also returned to the car. The little fellow beside him did not dare to speak. Don't you have anything to say? Huashidu was about to take out the cigarette box when he stopped and stuffed it back. Who knew? The little fellow looked timid, but seemed to have suddenly thought of something as his eyes lit up. He tried his best to move to Huashida's side. Brother, is that sister not pretty? Hearing this, Huashida glanced at him. He leaned against him casually. Does being pretty have anything to do with you? If brother can bring sister home, I'll be able to see sister forever. Huashida snorted. Stop dreaming. This child did not know what it meant to abduct a girl. But brother lacks a girlfriend. The little fellow blinked his big black eyes. Brother, I really like that sister. He also likes sister's dog. The little fellow added in his heart. The man's eyes were refined and abstinent as his slender fingers tapped on the armrest carelessly. It's a headache to have a restless person in the family. These words made the little fellow shut up. His brother looked at him 360 days a year, as if he wanted to throw him out. In the dining room. Third brother, haven't you gotten through yet? I've asked Uncle Wang. Bei Yunj has been nearby for a long time. Qin Youjiao said casually. Hearing this, Qin Lang's first reaction was that something had happened to Bei Yunj. He stood up suddenly, wanting to find her. However, Bei Yunj happened to appear in front of him at this moment. Good, you're here. Qin Lang sized up Bei Yunj. Seeing that she was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that she was fine. Don't come if you don't want to. There's no need to expose third brother and me. Qin Youjiao wanted to say something more, but she felt Qin Lang's cold gaze and shut her mouth instinctively. Guer, didn't you want to go to Hengda High School? I've already arranged for you to go to school in 2 days. Qin Lang's words made Qin Youjiao lose her composure a little. Third brother, how can she be in the same school as me? What if someone found out that Bei Yunj was the real eldest daughter of the Qin family? Wouldn't she be laughed at in school? Why can't Guer go to the same school as you? The warmth in Qin Lang's eyes gradually turned cold, making Qin Youjiao feel sour and aggrieved. For the whole day, third brother didn't treat her well. She even treated Bei Yunj like a treasure. Anything is fine. Up to you, Bei Yunj said unhurriedly. In her previous life, Bei Yunj's parents had divorced. Before the age of 18, she had been living with her mother, who was a famous scientist. She had finished her junior college studies at the age of 14. It was only after his mother passed away that he returned to his father's company and became the heir of the company. Bei Yunj's concept of high school was very blurry, because she had only studied for 3 months. Anything is fine? Qin Youjiao found it funny and her tone was contemptuous. Are you sure you can keep up with the progress? It was Bei Yunj's first time hearing someone ask her this, and her eyes landed on Qin Youjiao. Within moments, she licked her red lips. I'll try my best. Chapter 18. Hearing this, ridicule appeared in Qin Youjiao's eyes as she laughed. Bei Yunj, Hengda has an elimination system. It's meaningless for you to study there for a month. How could she not know Bei Yunj's standard? She couldn't even keep up with her original high school's progress, so how could she keep up with Hengda's progress? Who knew? Qin Lang interrupted her and looked at Bei Yunj. It's okay. Third brother has contacted the principal. Our family donated a building last time, so we won't let you drop out of school no matter what. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao's face darkened. Qin Youjiao comforted herself. Third brother was only treating Bei Yunj better, because of the old master. After that, she could not help sneering in her heart. Sure, since Bei Yunj wanted to come, she would make Bei Yunj realize the true gap between them. At this moment, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows slightly. She did not know if Qin Lang was suddenly acting on a whim, or if he was giving her charity. However, at this moment, no one noticed that Qin Lang's palms were sweating. In his previous life, he only found out later that Bei Yunj had been blackmailed and even bullied in her original high school. As a result, she had a serious communication problem. Now that he had been reborn, he could not let this happen again. A trace of determination flashed past Qin Lang's eyes. After dinner, Bei Yunj went to the dining room to wait for them. Seeing this, Qin Lang immediately put down his knife and fork, wiped the corners of his mouth and followed out, as if he was afraid that Bei Yunj would be bullied on the way. Seeing this, Qin Youjiao's expression darkened. She grumbled in her heart, and could not help but call Mrs. Qin. Soon Mrs. Qin's gentle voice sounded. "Jiao Jiao, what happened? Or do you miss Mommy? Mom, will you not want me one day?" Qin Youjiao suppressed her sobs. Hearing this, Mrs. Qin said hurriedly, "Silly child, what are you thinking about? You'll always be Mommy's daughter. How can Mommy not want you?" Qin Youjiao bit her lip. "But third brother seems to be ignoring me recently." Mrs. Qin couldn't help but laugh. "How can that be? Third brother dotes on you the most. Even when you were young, he wanted to hug you." Hearing this, Qin Youjiao also remembered the beautiful memories from before. Will third brother really not ignore me? Qin Youjiao thought of Qin Lang's recent attitude and felt a little annoyed. It's normal for girls to overthink things. Mother Qin forgave her and said, "Your third brother is probably under too much pressure. He's busy with the club's recruitment." Hearing Mrs. Qin say this, Qin Youjiao was relieved. "Mom, if you don't want me one day, I will make room for Bei Yunj." When Mrs. Qin heard Bei Yunj's name, her attitude also became much colder. She scolded softly. "What nonsense are you talking about? You're the true miss of the Qin family. Who dares to ask you to leave?" "Don't worry, I won't let anyone take away everything that belongs to you." The corners of Qin Youjiao's mouth gradually curled up, her eyes filled with smugness. Originally, as long as Bei Yunj was obedient, she could still coexist peacefully with Bei Yunj, who asked Bei Yunj to compete with her. After hanging up the call, Mrs. Qin even transferred 200,000 yuan to Qin Youjiao, asking her to go out more with her friends. She did not mention Bei Yunj at all. In less than 2 days, the news of Daheng High School had spread that there was going to be a transfer student in Class 7. It was said that it was also related to the school belle, Qin Youjiao's family. Everyone knew that Class 7 was truly a backdoor class. Although there were many good students who had to stay in Class 7 for the sake of scholarships, most of them were from rich families. Chapter 19. Class 7 was also in a heated discussion. "Is it true that there's a transfer student in our class?" A girl complained. "Doesn't that mean she's sitting with me?" Apart from the empty seat beside her, no one dared to sit in the other empty seat. "Maybe it's a handsome guy? Come on, the news has spread. It's a girl," she snorted. "And it's someone related to Qin Youjiao's family." However, as the eldest young lady of the Qin family, Qin Youjiao passed the exam and is in the top class. What's going on with this? It's just a rumor. She might be a relative of the Qin family. Another girl gloated, her tone filled with a strong sense of superiority. Poor relatives are like dog skin plasters. Even the school belle's family can't avoid it. What do you think the transfer student looks like? She's from the countryside. It's already not bad if she has a straight face. At this moment, Bei Yunj, who was being discussed, had just pushed open the office door when she bumped into the original male protagonist who had left the deepest impression on her. Cheng Zihuai's appearance was indeed good. He was handsome, and even wearing an ordinary school uniform could not hide his outstanding demeanor. However, what left a deep impression on Bei Yunj was that Cheng Zihuai was engaged to the original protagonist. In order to anger Qin Youjiao, he deliberately treated the original protagonist well in front of everyone. However, when they were alone, he told the original protagonist not to have wishful thinking. He even hit the original protagonist for Qin Youjiao. Besides, Cheng Zihuai had many suitors. Because of this, the original protagonist had suffered a lot of humiliation. In the end, she still had to watch Qin Youjiao and Cheng Zihuai live together. At this thought, Bei Yunj narrowed her bright eyes, her expression dangerous. Cheng Zihuai seemed to feel the gaze behind him and turned around. The moment he saw Bei Yunj, a trace of surprise flashed past his eyes. However, he quickly felt that this girl seemed a little familiar. Bei Yunj? Even the calm and composed original male protagonist Cheng Zihuai was in disbelief. But it was only for a moment. Cheng Zihuai frowned again, and remembered what Qin Youjiao had told him yesterday about Bei Yunj throwing a tantrum and asking Brother Qin to transfer her to another school. Besides, it was most likely for him. You don't have to chase me here, do you? Cheng Zihuai's tone was slightly mocking. Who knew? The young girl in front of him had a pair of excessively beautiful eyes. She just casually glanced at him. She ignored him and walked up to the head teacher of class 7. Are you teacher Wen? Mr. Wen looked at the beautiful girl in front of him in disbelief. You're a transfer student? Yes. Bei Yunj answered lazily. At this moment, Cheng Zihuai, who had been ignored, finally realized that Bei Yunj was here to look for the form teacher, not him. But for some reason, he still felt a little uncomfortable. Cheng Zihuai pursed his lips and recalled Bei Yunj's excessive enthusiasm for him in the past. He turned around and left. At this moment, the homeroom teacher couldn't help but gossip. You know Cheng Zihuai? He was the top student in the 3rd year of high school. Yes. Bei Yunj lowered her eyes carelessly, as if she had been staying up late for a long time, so her eyes were a little red. How did you know each other? The head teacher's interest was piqued. Bei Yunj suddenly sneered and said playfully, "A mental hospital." The form teacher was speechless. He really knew that this student had just come out of a mental hospital. After the bell rang, Class 7 was lively. Chapter 20. His news was indeed from the transfer student's original high school. The transfer student was timid and antisocial. She was not good-looking and had poor grades. She was a classic example of not daring to say anything when she was bullied. Wasn't this giving Class 7 a plaything? Besides, newcomers were easily ostracized. Many people were indeed looking at this new relative of the school belle with disdain and malice. Until the form teacher walked in. He turned around and said to the person outside with a smile, "Okay, come in." At this moment, a figure walked in from the door. The students who were laughing and fooling around immediately stopped what they were doing, and could not help but take a few more glances at the girl who had just walked in. The girl's eyes were bright and flamboyant, almost memorable at a glance. A pair of beautiful and flirtatious eyes swept across the surroundings casually. The aura on her could not be restrained and 4 words appeared in people's minds: Black Ridge Flower. A few seconds later, her languid voice rang out unhurriedly. "My name is Bei Yunj." With that said, everyone in the class was dumbfounded. This was their class's transfer student. Didn't they say that she was indescribably beautiful, and that no one would want to look at her when she was in a crowd? But when she was beside Qin Youjiao, she could make the school bell look dull. Do we have anything else? The form teacher hinted crazily. Yes. Before the form teacher could heave a sigh of relief, she asked seriously, "Teacher, where should I sit?" The form teacher was speechless. "Choose one." The form teacher comforted her. This was a girl, a cute and lovable girl. She would definitely not cause any trouble for him. However, Bei Yunj did not know what the form teacher was thinking at all. She glanced at the 2 empty seats left in the class. One was beside the girl by the window, but it was filled with girls' things. It was obvious that they did not want her to sit there. Seeing this, Bei Yunj did not think too much and walked to the other seat. This bold action made the people around her start to feel afraid. Is this transfer student crazy? How dare she sit beside Brother Liu? Haha, maybe she has even asked around. She doesn't know what's good for her. She even wants to provoke Lu Yuannian. Many people in the class were ready to watch the show. Logically speaking, most guys would feel pity for pretty girls. However, before Pei Yunj came, Qin Youjiao had already made everyone have a bad impression of this transfer student. Her poor relatives came knocking on her door, yet she still had the nerve to ask someone to send her to Hongda to study. Another one who was greedy and vain. At this moment, Bei Yunj glanced at a certain person who was sleeping soundly next to her. She moved her chair away and placed her bag on the table. "Hey newbie, wake up your desk mate," the teacher with the shiny head instructed. Hearing this, the other students couldn't help but secretly curse this teacher. Normally, he didn't even dare to provoke Lu Yuannian, but now he actually asked the new student to wake Lu Yuannian up. Did she think that Lu Yuannian wouldn't lay a hand on a girl? Pei Yunj frowned imperceptibly before she smirked. "Teacher, what if they start fighting?" Hearing this, some girls burst into laughter. "He's really smart. He even knows that Lu Yuannian can't be messed with." His tone was mixed with a strong sense of ridicule and jealousy. It was obvious that he felt that Bei Yunj had an ulterior motive for sitting beside Lu Yuannian. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The teacher's face flushed red and he said in disdain, "Enough, sit down quickly." The teacher turned to look at the blackboard and said angrily, "It's already difficult enough to take care of, and you even have to bring a transfer student. What is this school thinking?" Chapter 21. Everyone could tell that the teachers didn't like the new students very much. The reason why they didn't like them was because it would increase their workload or drag down the class average. At this moment, the people around glanced at Bei Yunj with disdain. This kind of person who pestered the Qin family deserved to be isolated. However, after Bei Yunj sat down, she ignored the gazes around her. When everyone was preparing for class, she put on the invisible Bluetooth and turned on the iPad, using the book as a cover. She checked her email and didn't see any new emails. According to the time, the information submitted the day before should be out today. Bei Yunj thought for a moment and stuffed the iPad back into the drawer. After class, the person beside Bei Yunj finally moved and took off his uniform. Suddenly, she heard a slightly cold voice beside her. "Who are you?" Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned around and glanced at him. The boy was wearing a black t-shirt and looked handsome. There was a hint of arrogance and coldness in his eyes. At the same time, the boy was also sizing her up. Bei Yunj looked away. She wasn't afraid of him like other girls or liked him. She looked up. "Someone who has nothing to do with you." The moment she finished speaking, the two students sitting in front felt a chill run down their spines. This was the first time they met someone who dared to speak to Brother Lu like this. "Why are you sitting there?" Lu Yuanxi frowned. The young man's voice was a little hoarse, but it sounded nice. At this moment, Bei Yunj didn't say anything and only glanced at him. Her meaning was clear. If you're not blind, see for yourself. After Lu Yuanxi was silent, he suddenly laughed. However, his eyes were calm. Youjiao's relative? Hearing this, Bei Yunj suddenly remembered that the second male lead was from Class 7 in the original novel. Although she didn't remember his name, the second male lead's spare tire made her sigh. He accompanied her when she was in love, and chatted with her when they broke up. Even when Qin Youjiao got married and had a child, when she threw a tantrum with Cheng Zihuai and ran abroad, he was still by her side. "You're the first person who dared to sit next to me." Lu Yuanxi spoke again. His tone was unclear, but Bei Yunj could hear the mockery in it. "You can ask someone to trade with you." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows lazily. Amidst her charm, there was an indescribable arrogance. "No need." Lu Yuanxi said indifferently, "I don't intend to be special, but I don't want anyone to disturb me." Speaking of which, suddenly his lips curled up. "New deskmate, let me remind you that Youjiao is very popular." After that, he picked up his uniform and walked out of the classroom. Lu Yuanxi knew what kind of trouble Bei Yunj would be in, but he was not a hero who would save a damsel in distress. He disliked trouble even more. Lu Yuanxi didn't come back even when class started. The teacher on the stage glanced at Lu Yuanxi's seat and didn't say anything. Obviously, this was not the first time someone had skipped class. Noon. Bae Yunja's eyebrows twitched when she received the reply. She got up and went to the rooftop of the school again. Bae Yunj had no choice but to find a job because it was her first time in this world. And with the original owner's background and age, there was almost no suitable job. Therefore, Bae Yunj could only find her old job overseas. However, the moment Bae Yunj left, the girls from class 7 gathered together. Sisterling, this poor relative of Qin Yojiao's is really high up. Did you hear what she said to Lu Yuanxi just now? She's afraid that Lu Yuanxi won't pay attention to her, right? P.S. The supporting male lead's name has been changed. I didn't notice it yesterday, but I saw it today. He's the number 1 on the Bounty Daily ranking. Chapter 22. The girl was a little sarcastic. She's good-looking. She's the new school belle. The boy who was about to go out with the basketball said with a grin. The girl glared at him. Vulgar. Qin Yojiao is talented and is in the top 3 of the cohort. What is she? Apart from her face, how can she compare to Qin Yojiao? Yes, how can I not? Those long legs and slender waist were the epitome of a perfect match. Get lost. Don't bother me, the girl said arrogantly. After the boy left indifferently, Ling Jiwei's expression darkened as well. Everyone in the class knew that she liked Lu Yuanxi, and that Lu Yuanxi liked Qin Yojiao. However, Qin Yojiao and Cheng Zihuai were a couple, so she was not worried at all. But now, a transfer student from a third-rate high school dared to snatch someone from her. Ling Jiwei laughed coldly. I have to teach her what it means to know her place. Hearing this, the other girls could not help but gloat. Sisterling, are you trying to protect your husband domineeringly? The girl deliberately said something nice. Ling Jiwei's lips curled up, her expression arrogant. Stop talking nonsense. I have a good relationship with Yojiao. I'll help Yojiao with the things she disdains to do. It was almost time for the self-study session in the afternoon when Bae Yunj finally returned to the classroom. Hey newcomer, come here. A girl sitting on the podium shouted arrogantly. Bae Yunj glanced at her slowly, her red lips curling up slightly as she turned to leave. Seeing Bae Yunj's disdainful expression, Ling Jiwei's eyes darkened. She clenched her fists and laughed coldly. This Bae Yunj was really arrogant. Did she really think that no one in Hengda could deal with her? Soon, before Bae Yunj returned to her seat, she saw that her seat was splashed with black paint, and even her textbook was completely destroyed. At this moment, the people around were silent as they watched this scene indifferently. Only a few boys looked at the silent Bae Yunj and felt pity for her. This ruthless act of destroying a flower was a bit too ruthless. From the podium, Ling Jiwei looked at Bae Yunj's motionless back and immediately vented her anger. She jumped down lightly and smiled with satisfaction. Newcomer, I think I should teach you some rules. Suddenly, Bae Yunj asked who did it. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Bae Yunj to ask such a question. Who do you think did it? Ling Jiwei crossed her arms and stood proudly in front of Bae Yunj, smiling brightly. She was the daughter of a vice president. Why would she be afraid of this shameless relative of the Qin family? It's you? Bae Yunj turned her head and the corners of her lips curled up. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a thick layer of coldness that could not be dissolved. Ling Jiwei and Bae Yunj looked at each other and felt a chill run down their spines. But then he chuckled. What do you think? Bae Yunj, has anyone ever told you that you think too highly of yourself? As soon as he finished speaking, someone stood at the door. It was Lu Yuanxi. He glanced at the two people who had a strange atmosphere. When he walked to his seat, he roughly understood what had happened. Lu Yuanxi frowned and couldn't bear to see this happen. Who did it? Lu Yuanxi asked. After he asked, everyone in the classroom was shocked. When did Lu Yuanxi care about such things? Chapter 23. Ling Jiwei's expression was ugly. She clenched her fists and her nails dug into her flesh. Just as she was hesitating whether to admit it, a voice came from outside. What's wrong with your class? Why aren't you all sitting in your seats? The dean's reprimand reached everyone's ears first. Hearing this, Ling Jiwei also heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that she was saved. Lu Yuanxi, I heard that you skipped class again? The dean would ask this every day. No, I went out for a meal and came back. Lu Yuanxi lazily touched the back of his head. This meal took the time of 3 periods of class. Don't do it again. The dean's words could be memorized by the rest of the class. But Lu Yuanxi did it again and again, and they didn't seem to care. At the end of the day, the Lu family was rich and powerful. Okay. Lu Yuanxi answered perfunctorily. Seeing this, the dean stopped staring at Lu Yuanxi and looked at Bei Yunj. He frowned and his tone was obviously unhappy. You're the transfer student? This student was too famous in their teaching group. Most of the teachers didn't agree with a student who couldn't keep up with the progress in an ordinary high school to stay in Hengda. But the principal's attitude was firm, and he had to let her in. Now that you've entered Hengda, don't bring the previous atmosphere into Hengda. Otherwise, it's useless no matter where you go. The dean's tone was indescribably disgusted. Why aren't you going back to your seat? Bei Yunj didn't get angry but laughed instead. Her eyes were extremely beautiful and her smile was bright. Teacher, please take a seat first. As soon as she finished speaking, the dean didn't have time to react and saw that the seat beside Lu Yuanxi was in a mess. It was a mess. At first glance, he knew that it was a prank. Who bullied the new student like this? The dean asked sternly, but in fact he didn't take it too seriously. It would be best if this new transfer student could drop out of school. Teacher, it's probably an accident. One of the girls who was close to Ling Jiwei said with a smile. Hearing this, the dean subconsciously glanced at Ling Jiwei. He suddenly knew who might have done this. Not only the students, but even the teachers were also very familiar with their classmates' private affairs. This was also Ling Jiwei's style. This matter will be investigated and someone will apologize. The dean pondered for a moment before speaking. His nephew was still working under Ling Jiwei's father. He couldn't really anger this child. Initially, the dean thought that this matter would be over. He didn't expect that. Bei Yunj suddenly laughed. She said slowly. So that's how it is. For a moment, before anyone could react, Bei Yunj suddenly walked to the other side. Before anyone could react, the girl raised her long leg and kicked Ling Jiwei's table over in front of everyone. The sound was enough to make one's scalp tingle. The things on the table were smashed into pieces. Ling Jiwei's expression immediately changed. At this moment, Bei Yunj suddenly turned her head, raised her beautiful eyes, and licked her lips carelessly. His gaze was wild and unbridled as it landed directly on Ling Jiwei's face. I'm sorry, classmate. I'm feeling a little hot today. Immediately, the students on the field were stunned. The dean's face turned green. What was wrong with this transfer student? She was so arrogant in front of him and then apologized? Was she deliberately using her actions to resist him and make him apologize? Chapter 24. At this moment, the other students gradually realized that they knew nothing about the new student. They thought that she was a beauty who was bullied because of her arrogance, but they didn't expect her to be even wilder than Brother Lu. Even Brother Lu didn't do this. Good. Good for you. You're causing trouble in front of me, aren't you? The dean was so angry that his eyes turned black. He pointed at Bei Yunj and shouted angrily. This was too much. He couldn't teach Lu Yuanxi a lesson, but he couldn't teach a worthless transfer student a lesson. Teacher, I know I was wrong. Don't be so fierce to me. The girl in front of him was too good-looking. She looked so obedient that people had the urge to forgive her. At the same time, the English teacher who didn't know the truth walked in. She recognized the new transfer student at a glance. She frowned and said, Dean, the child just transferred and hasn't adapted to the environment yet. What have you done to her? This child was being scolded in front of so many people. How uncomfortable must it be? For a moment, the class was silent. What a master at confusing people. The dean's face turned red and black. Are you pretending? I'm going to call your parents now. I'll let them see what you're like. The teaching director left with a heart full of anger. In the office, the dean found Bei Yunj's personal information and made a call. Qin Lang was practicing at the base. His voice was hoarse from waking up. Hello. Hello, I'm Hungda's dean. I want to ask. Gur was bullied? Qin Lang suddenly woke up and asked immediately. The dean's forehead was bulging. Bei Yunj maliciously targeted her classmates in school and, don't talk nonsense. Why don't you say that she committed murder and arson? Qin Lang sneered. This was the first time he heard such ridiculous words. This was Hungda's dean? He was so good at lying through his teeth. Parent, you really have to look at Bei Yunj. She's not what you think. The dean was almost angered to death by them. When Qin Lang heard this, his gaze gradually turned cold. Dean, right? My sister has a communication disorder. If anything happens to my sister in school, none of you will be able to escape responsibility. After that, Qin Lang hung up the phone and put on his headset to continue the live broadcast. But he was always absent-minded. Gu had been packing her things for the past 2 days, preparing to move out. He had called yesterday and asked Qinyu to think of a way. Why was there no movement from him at all? Forget it, I'll ask again after the live stream. Qin Lang couldn't help but think of the dean just now. He couldn't help but mock him. What kind of trash teacher is that? These words were accidentally captured by the microphone. The fans who were watching the live stream exploded. Hubby, wait, who are you talking about? Crush was on the phone with the teacher, right? Is it sister's teacher? Wait, I just got online. What sister? Crush is the young master of the Qin family. Does Qin Yojiao know? The princess of the Qin family was loved by everyone. Woo, almighty Qin just happened to love her. Damn Siscon. Ha 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 ha. A certain captain scolded his teammates for not making progress in the base, but dissed his sister's teacher behind his back. In less than 2 hours, #CrushSisterComplex hashtag became a trending topic, and even dug out Qin Yojiao's enviable life. Chapter 25. Afternoon. The girls around Qin Yojiao surrounded her. Yojiao, your brother dotes on you so much. I'm so jealous. Qin Yojiao's eyes flickered. Why are you suddenly bringing this up? Your brother's sister complex is on the hot search list. His fans are crazily tagging you. You're the only one who doesn't care. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao thought that Qin Lang had mentioned her casually during the livestream again. She couldn't help but smile, but said deliberately, I've been throwing a tantrum with him recently. Don't talk about him. I'm jealous. You're still throwing a tantrum with such an immortal brother? In the villa district, the man had just finished showering and was wearing a loose bathrobe. His black hair was wet and casually scratched at the back. His collar was lazily half open, and his firm chest made people blush and their hearts beat faster. His temperament was undisciplined, but his light-colored pupils were cold and restrained. Huashidu picked up the phone beside him. Speak. The person on the other end of the line was silent for a moment, but it was obviously not because of Huashida's attitude. Master Du, can you help me take care of the child? As soon as he finished speaking, Huashida hung up and went to the washroom. It wasn't until he dried his hair and changed his clothes that he returned to his bedroom that he realized his phone was still ringing. When the call was connected again, Huashida's tone was indifferent as he sneered. Do I look very free? The little one in the old house was almost thrown into the trash can. Master Du, it really saved my life. My child is throwing a tantrum and doesn't want to stay at home, but I'm afraid that she's not safe. Can you do me a favor? It was also the first time Qin Yu had a favor to ask of someone. His tone was helpless. It's easy to take care of a little girl. She'll be quiet after you're fierce. After all, Qin Yu knew his Goer's character very well. She might not even have the guts to speak to Huashidu. Where did this kid come from? When Huashida met Qin Yu had fallen out with his family, and had never heard him talk about his family. My sister. She's my biological sister. Huashida did not agree. He was not interested in raising a delicate little girl at home. However, Qin Yu seemed to treat Huashidu as his last life-saving straw and kept calling. But in the end, he was mercilessly blacklisted. There was indeed a reason why Qin Yu was only obsessed with Huashidu. He had been in the entertainment industry for a few years and was surrounded by a bunch of bad friends. Leaving Guer in their home, wasn't that the same as sending a lamb to the tiger's den? However, Hwashidu was different. He had known Hwashidu for a few years and had never seen any woman by his side. He was born with few desires and was not interested in love. Therefore, Chinyu treated Hwashidu as a safe person. Afternoon. After Hwashidu was done with the documents, he received a message from Chinyu using his assistant's phone. Master, due just 2 months. I'm sure I can coax her home. Following that, she also sent Bae Yunja's basic information to Hwashidu. This included a picture of Bae Yunja's daily life. When the man's slender fingers casually slid to the photo, he stopped. A hint of interest appeared in his cold, pale-colored pupils. So it was her. Abroad. Backstage at the concert. Chinyu received Hwashida's reply. Let me think. Seeing this, Chinyu thought that his perseverance had moved Hwashidu. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. Hongda High School. The news had already spread throughout the school that the transfer student from Class 7 was prettier than Qin Yojiao. But the first thing he did was to embarrass his classmates in front of the teacher. What was the use of being good-looking? He was another ignorant and incompetent hooligan. Besides, he had only entered Hongda because he sucked the blood of Qin Yojiao's family. Chapter 26. These rumors also reached Qin Yojiao's ears. It made her feel a little more comfortable. Even if Bae Yunja's personality changed drastically, it couldn't change the fact that she was mediocre and stupid. Yojiao, who exactly is Bae Yunj to the Qin family? She actually dared to kick my table today. Ling Jiwei gritted her teeth. If the form teacher hadn't warned both parties, she would have definitely taught Bae Yunj a lesson. A trace of emotion flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes as she touched her bandaged hand. Don't blame her. Ever since she pushed me down the stairs last time and my brothers sent her to the mental hospital, she's been a little agitated. She was sent to the mental hospital? Ling Jiwei was surprised. She has always been a loner. In her original school, she was also asked to leave once. Qin Yojiao laughed. I think she was caught cheating in the exam. Anyway, it's a little too much. Don't spread this matter. It's not good for her. A strange glint flashed in Ling Jiwei's eyes, but she laughed disdainfully. Of course not. But to be honest, this poor relative really can't be compared to a famous young lady. I heard that you got second place in the overall score and first in physics in this exam. Teacher Jean praises you in our class every day. An uncontrollable smile appeared on Qin Yojiao's lips. I'm in good shape this time. After school, Bae Yunj took out her phone and found that an unknown overseas number had called her several times. She raised her eyebrows and called back when the call was connected. Is this Miss Pei? Bae Yunj answered. I'm Marcus. I just spoke to you. I want to know, are you really not considering coming to our country to develop your career? It wasn't the first time Marcus had asked about this. He was thinking of ways to make her immigrate and change her nationality. The emotions in Bae Yunja's eyes faded, and she chuckled lazily. Mr. Marcus, I hope that we can be sensible people. Then why don't you stay in your country's computing institute? Marcus couldn't help asking. He was too curious about this person. He basically knew all the people who were competing for the top in the field of computing technology, but she seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Because the application deadline was this month, this person hacked into the official website of the Institute of Computational Technology and deliberately left a loophole. She seemed to be politely asking them to choose whether they wanted her or not. In reality, it was because she already knew that they would definitely let her stay. Because of her directional academic paper and data visualization. They don't want me. Bae Yunj raised her red lips, but her words were not persuasive at all to Marcus. This level of skill was something that computing institutes from all over the world would fight to get. Okay, then we'll sign a temporary contract first. According to your request, we'll pay you 3 months' worth of remuneration first. If you wish to change your mind, our country will always welcome talents like you. Marcus said sincerely. In any circle, ability was the first priority. Thank you. Bei Yunji's brows relaxed, and the corners of her lips curled up. But he didn't expect to see Lu Yuanxi behind him. I'll hang up first. Talk to you next time. Bei Yunji hung up the phone and heard Lu Yuanxi ask. Who are you talking to? My part-time boss. After Bei Yunji finished speaking, Lu Yuanxi realized that most girls of this age like to wear some accessories. For example, Qin Youjiao's watch cost hundreds of thousands. But Bei Yunji was clean from head to toe. Chapter 27. Lu Yuanxi's eyes flashed. Wasn't she staying with the Qin family? With the Qin family's power, why would they let her work part-time? Lu Yuanxi couldn't help feeling sympathetic. Don't delay your studies. However, the moment he said this, their eyes met and the atmosphere froze for a moment. There's nothing to learn. She laughed lazily and walked around him to leave. This ignorant and incompetent appearance made Lu Yuanxi's eyelid twitch. She was at least a distant relative of the Qin family. Why was her personality so different from Qin Youjiao's? As the eldest young lady of the Qin family, Qin Youjiao was good at almost everything. Even her results were in the top 3 of the level, and had never dropped out. She had high expectations for herself. The night gradually darkened. In the Qin family, before Bei Yunji entered the hall, she heard the sound of the piano inside. The moment she looked up, she saw an elegant mother and daughter playing the piano intimately and tacitly under the crystal chandelier. The original protagonist had seen this scene several times. A faint smile appeared on her lips as she carried her bag casually, preparing to return to her room. Guo. Qin Lang, who had been waiting anxiously by the side, called out. This made Mrs. Qin and Qin Youjiao notice her. A dark look flashed past Qin Youjiao's eyes. She turned to look at Mrs. Qin and said coquettishly, Mom, I already said that my hand is injured. Are you deliberately using me as a contrast? Before Mrs. Qin could take another look at Bei Yunji, her eyes landed on Qin Youjiao again. She found it funny and reached out to scratch Qin Youjiao's nose. Why is your personality as strong as mine when I was young? Those who didn't know better would think that they were biological mother and daughter. Let's eat. Stop playing. Sensing the unusual atmosphere, Mr. Qin, who was sitting on the sofa, spoke. Then his eyes landed on Bei Yunji. He froze. He probably didn't expect Bei Yunji to look like this when she didn't have makeup on her face. Girls look much better when they're innocent, Mr. Qin said calmly. Bei Yunji glanced at the people around her slowly. For the first time, she felt that eating was a troublesome matter. She said this and went upstairs. Put down your bag first. Hearing this, Mr. Qin couldn't help but look at Bei Yunji's back. It was rare to see her so indifferent. At this moment, Qin Youjiao's voice interrupted Mr. Qin's thoughts. Dad, I got second place in the cohort this time. I'm only 2 points away from first place. Can you attend your daughter's parent-teacher conference? When Mr. Qin heard this, a faint doting look appeared on his cold face. Didn't we agree that only the first place will be allowed? But this time I won an award, Qin Youjiao said with her head tilted. What award? If you don't go, I won't talk to you anymore. Mr. Qin couldn't help but laugh. Usually someone dotes on you too much. All right, I'll participate. What do you mean by spoiling Jiajiao too much? Daughters are meant to be spoiled. Mother Qin retorted unhappily. The atmosphere of this family of 3 was incomparably harmonious. Qin Lang, on the other hand, was biting on a cigarette. He didn't say a word and felt depressed. Did Ge used to care for Qin Youjiao when she saw their family, including her 3 older brothers? Perhaps in her heart, she had long felt that she was an outsider who couldn't fit in. At this thought, Qin Lang felt even more uncomfortable. Why are you sitting there? Didn't you hear your father say that it's time to eat? Mrs. Qin said. Everyone's not here yet. How can we eat? Qin Lang's casual tone was slightly cold. Chapter 28. With that said, the atmosphere fell silent. Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Qin did feel guilty towards Bei Yunji, but they could not turn it into doting. Especially Mrs. Qin. At this moment, Qin Youjiao bit her lip, and a trace of gloom flashed past her face. Third brother had never thought of Bei Yunj in the past. Why was he so concerned about Bei Yunj's existence now? When Bei Yunj went downstairs, she found that this family had not gone to eat and seemed to be waiting for her. You're here. Let's eat together. Mr. Qin spoke first. Bei Yunj hummed carelessly and sat down. Soon, Mr. Qin found a topic. Why didn't you come back with Jiao Jiao? I don't want to. Bei Yunj's words were concise, making Mrs. Qin furrow her eyebrows unconsciously. However, when she looked up and met Bei Yunj's eyes, she froze. She forgot to say anything. Bei Yunj's eyes and eyebrows were similar to hers, even if the feeling she gave was completely different. Mrs. Qin looked away almost immediately, her hand trembling as she picked up the wine glass with an unnoticeable embarrassment. She would never be able to erase this blood relationship. This scene also fell into Bei Yunj's eyes. After watching it calmly, a trace of mockery appeared in her eyes. Suddenly, Mr. Qin asked, "Do you want to go to old Madame Lu's birthday banquet in a few days, Yunj?" These words almost made Qin Youjiao's hand stop. If Bei Yunj went, wouldn't Bei Yunj's identity be exposed sooner or later? Jiao Jiao usually goes to these. There's no need to change, right? Mrs. Qin suddenly interrupted, as if she was afraid that Bei Yunj would snatch Qin Youjiao's things away. However, Qin Lang's gaze turned even colder. Mom, until now no one knows that Gu'er is our Qin family's. Why don't you think for your sister? Mrs. Qin interrupted Qin Lang and questioned. Seeing Mrs. Qin protecting Qin Youjiao, Qin Lang clenched his fists so tightly that they turned white. He really wanted to tell Mother Qin that the daughter she doted on so much didn't even bother to attend her funeral, when she was at her lowest. As for Gu'er, her biological daughter whom she treated as nothing, when her body was at its weakest, she had wasted half her life in order to extract bone marrow for her. Qin Lang took a deep breath. Isn't Gu'er my younger sister? Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched unconsciously when she heard the family arguing about her for the first time. Yu Jiao has always brought honor to the Qin family. Moreover, the Chung family will be attending the birthday banquet as well. Mrs. Qin was rendered speechless for a moment before she retorted. However, she did not realize that she was implying that Bei Yunj would embarrass her. Subsequently, before Mr. Qin could speak, Bei Yunj sneered. I don't want to go. She only wanted to cut ties with the Qin family as soon as possible. The original owner was able to stay in this house for so many years because of her good temper. Gu'er Zihuai has no feelings for you. Mr. Qin paused. But I can tell that he likes Jiao Jiao. I don't want to ruin our family's relationship because of this. These words were meant to protect Qin Youjiao. Bei Yunj picked at her rice casually. She had no appetite and a hidden coldness flashed in her eyes. She smirked. I'll only answer once. I'm not interested in you and that person from the Chung family. Then Bei Yunj stood up and left the dining table. Okay, you can continue. This arrogant attitude almost made Mr. and Mrs. Qin unable to react. Where are you going? Mr. Qin asked with a dark expression. Chapter 29. Let's go to a place to have fun. Bei Yunj's leisurely voice made Mr. Qin's expression darken quickly. Originally, Bei Yunj was only bad at her studies and had flaws in her personality, but it was not that serious. But she was not as unrestrained as she was now. She was simply stubborn. Bei Yunj, I don't expect you to be as sensible and smart as Yo Jiao. But can't you be obedient? Mr. Qin was furious. Qin Youjiao, who was beside him, saw this scene and the smile on her lips faded slightly. It was also her first time seeing Mr. Qin angry. At this moment, Bei Yunj had already walked far away. She did not know if she had heard Mr. Qin's last sentence. The child isn't raised by her side. She doesn't seem like a family member after all. Mrs. Qin scooped a bowl of soup and handed it to Qin Youjiao. When she was about to scoop a second bowl for Qin Lang, she saw Qin Lang put down his chopsticks and walk out. Mrs. Qin's expression changed. Qin Lang, where are you going? I'm looking for my sister. Qin Lang put on a baseball cap to cover his handsome face and said mockingly. These words made Mrs. Qin's expression change again. Qin Lang. Qin Lang ran into the darkness outside the door without looking back. It was only then that Mrs. Qin realized that Qin Yojiao had really changed when she said that Qin Lang had changed. In Muse Bar, the atmosphere in the private room was ambiguous as the guests laughed with their arms around the women's waists. Only a man with a lazy posture had his long legs crossed and his back leaning against the sofa loosely. He was holding a cigarette between his fingers. It was as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. At this moment, many women were secretly sizing up the man who made their hearts race not far away. However, because of his indifferent expression, they did not dare to go forward. Master Do you really not want someone to serve you? The CEO smiled with countless wrinkles on his face as he said flatteringly. With that said, a few women couldn't help but look over, wanting to be chosen. Take care of yourself. Huashida's tone was cold. Instantly, the CEO's scalp turned numb, and he did not dare to say anything. And because of this, master, the people around did not dare to play too much. Huashida glanced at the watch on his wrist, planning to go back in half an hour. Today, if the old madam had not guarded his house for the entire day, he would not have sat here in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the door of the private room was pushed open. A drunk young man came in with a woman in his arms. Just now I saw a very pretty girl outside. Do you want to come with me to take a look? The man looked all right, but the dark circles under his eyes were not shallow. At first glance, it was obvious that he had done too much. However, no one dared to say anything. She was afraid that the master beside her would find it too noisy. Then I'll go by myself. He smiled maliciously, pushed the woman in his arms away, and walked out. At this moment, Huashidu received a message from Qinyu. Master Du, are you still at Muse? My sister seems to have gone in, but my family can't find her. Can you check the surveillance cameras for me? Qinyu, who was overseas, had a dark expression and was burning with anxiety. He only wanted to return to the country as soon as possible. He really didn't expect Gur to be so bold as to enter a bar. At this moment, after reading the message, the man stood up abruptly and walked out. Master Du, where are you going? At the bar counter. Bei Yunj ordered a cocktail with ease and sat by the bar counter to watch the performance. She rested her chin on one hand, her eyes lazy and bright. When she raised her eyebrows, she looked charming. Instantly, it attracted the attention of many people in the bar. Chapter 30. At the same time, Lu Yuanxi, who had just come to have fun with his friends, looked up and saw this scene with a cold expression. Bei Yunj's upturned eyes seemed to be smiling. She casually raised her glass to the performer on the stage. She stared at her without moving her eyes and drank it bit by bit. Seeing this, the hot dancers on the stage inexplicably felt their heartbeats quicken and their faces heat up. The people who were cheering enthusiastically below the stage did not notice anything unusual at all. Then, this young lady is too good. Both men and women? This is the first time I've seen her. Lu Yuanxi's friends looked at Bei Yunj and sighed. But just because of this face, he also wanted to swim into his sister's fish pond. However, Lu Yuanxi's face darkened. It seemed that his deskmate's private life was even more promiscuous than his. He actually believed Bei Yunj's nonsense about looking for a part-time job. But she looks a little familiar. Brother Lu, do you think? Before his friend finished speaking, Lu Yuanxi turned around and left. Hey Brother Lu, why didn't you wait for me? At the bar. After the woman got off the stage, she walked to Bei Yunj's side and smiled sweetly. Miss, if you're alone, can I sit here? She looked at Bei Yunj with great interest. Actually, for someone like her who had been in the entertainment industry for several years, she was already immune to good looks. But when she first saw this person in front of her, she automatically came to a conclusion in her mind. She was too beautiful, but there was no warmth in her smiling eyes. She gave people a sense of the unknown, and people could not help but approach her curiously. You saw someone with a camera when you came in. Go change your clothes first. Bei Yunj did not even raise her head. Hearing this, the woman froze and touched the mask on her face. You recognized me? Your high voice is steady, your image is good, and your dancing skills are solid. Can't you be popular? Bei Yunj seemed to be casually looking for a topic to talk about. However, it hit the woman right where it hurt. She did come here to have a part-time job to find the right feeling. But so far, only 2 people knew her true identity. Yu Manran couldn't help but turn his head away and randomly pick up the cigarette case. His slender fingers had just picked up a cigarette and was about to bring it to his lips. Unexpectedly, another hand suddenly took away her cigarette. "Don't look back. Look at me," Bei Yunj's lazy voice sounded. Yu Manran immediately froze. He knew what was going on. She subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj, only to see her supporting herself with one hand on the bar counter. Her eyes were filled with indifference. However, it was becoming more and more alluring. Her elegant fingers, which were holding the cigarette, seemed to be lazily caressing the woman's cheek. In reality, the person who was secretly taking photos of Yu Manran was so angry that he almost fainted. Just now he had clearly seen Yu Manran wanting to smoke, but in the end, he had captured Yu Manran's face being touched by another person who was holding a cigarette. Furthermore, this photo couldn't prove that it was Yu Manran. Not long after, Bei Yunj returned the cigarette to Yu Manran. However, Yu Manran seemed to be afraid and threw the cigarette away. That was close. She was almost criticized by the entire internet. She didn't have a good relationship with the public. Be careful next time. After saying that, Bei Yunj put a few red notes under the wine glass and prepared to leave. However, when Yu Manran saw this, he asked anxiously, "Can you help me?" She didn't know why, but she felt that Bei Yunj could help her. I'll give you money," Yu Manran stammered. After saying that, she regretted it. Would this person in front of her misunderstand? Would he feel that she was humiliating her? Chapter 31. Who knew? The people who were about to leave stopped in their tracks. Bei Yunj looked at her and said, "Sure." Yu Manran. Was she so honest? Not long after they finished chatting, Yu Manran left. Bei Yunj had just come out of the washroom when she saw 3 to 4 men leaning against the dark corridor not far away. She took out a tissue, wiped her hands, and prepared to leave. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the other side. "Miss, why are you leaving? Aren't you going to stay and play with us?" A few men's ear-piercing laughter rang out with ill intentions. Bei Yunj looked up and saw someone blocking her way. "You can leave if you want, but can you light a cigarette for our young masterling first?" Hearing that, Bei Yunj's gaze landed on the person beside her who looked like a rich man. At this moment, that man who was called young masterling was also sizing her up unscrupulously. He really did not expect that Muse would send such a stunner. "Light a cigarette?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows slightly. Her smile did not reach her eyes, but in the eyes of others, it was flirtatious. "Sure." After that, Bei Yunj took out a cigarette from the cigarette box. Without waiting for anyone to react, she picked up a lighter. In their eyes, it was even more unbearable for them to see this kind of behavior. It was rare to see such an obedient woman. Then tonight there would be fun. However, in the next moment, the girl in front of them suddenly squatted down, held up the cigarette butt, and casually lit it with the lighter. After a while, white smoke curled up. Seeing Bei Yunj's action, the few of them did not have time to hide their smiles. After that, she lowered her eyes and hid the faint coldness that appeared. They heard Bei Yunj's playful laughter. "Look at this smoke. Doesn't it look like the incense in your graves?" In an instant, the smiles on their faces could not be maintained. Gradually, they became gloomy. "You don't know what's good for you, do you?" Young Master Ling looked at Bei Yunj sinisterly. Previously, he still wanted to dote on this woman. After all, she was so good-looking. He should play with her for a few more days. How boring would it be if he broke it at the beginning? But now, he saw that she just wanted to suffer more. "Yeah, I'm used to it. After all, it's been so many years." Bei Yunj stood up, flicked the lighter, and smiled calmly. When young Master Ling heard that, a sinister look flashed across his eyes as he sneered. "Did you hear that? Today, I'll teach her how to speak with her tongue." "Yes." They approached Bei Yunj step by step, sneering in their hearts. They didn't take Bei Yunj seriously at all. What kind of ability could a girl who looked like she was in her 20s have? However, just as someone reached out to cover Pei Yunji's mouth and nose first, in the next second, the other hand grabbed his collar even faster. Then, without waiting for anyone to react, that slender white hand suddenly pulled with all her might. The tall man had no choice but to bend over and look up at Pei Yunji with difficulty. You. The man's face was full of shock and fear, but he couldn't break free of her hand. And the few people beside him were so stunned that they didn't dare to go forward. Idiots! What are you waiting for? Go and catch her. Young Master Ling's face was full of anger. Hearing that, their eyes flashed with fierceness again, and they rushed towards Pei Yunji. Pei Yunji let go of her hand, but she swiftly kicked the tall man's abdomen. He howled in pain, and his body couldn't help but lean back violently. Chapter 32. Seeing this, Pei Yunji chuckled and picked up her waist-length curly hair. She casually bit on a rubber band and tied it into a ponytail. Her beautiful eyes could not hide the arrogance. She's shouting just like that. Instantly, the few of them felt the atmosphere become tense, but they did not know how to handle it. Usually, when they surrounded those girls, they had never failed, and they had never encountered such an extreme situation. Let me tell you, I'm the young master of the Ling family. If you dare to mess around, do you believe that I'll make it impossible for you to survive here? Young Master Ling's words were stern, but his heart was weak. Pei Yunji ignored him and walked straight towards them. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and protect me. Young Master Ling widened his eyes and roared angrily. He usually brought them to eat and drink well, but in the end they could not even win against a woman. At this moment, someone gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go together." Hearing this, one of them silently took out a small knife from behind his waist. His eyes were filled with coldness. Then, just as the crowd swarmed forward, a voice rang out. He rushed forward, raised the dagger, and slashed towards Pei Yunji's face. Originally, from this angle, it should be very difficult for the girl to react quickly. But who knew? Pei Yunji suddenly turned her head and grabbed his hand. In the next moment, the crisp sound of bones breaking made everyone's scalp go numb. Following that, there was a shrill scream. Ah! Pei Yunji caught the falling knife steadily and suddenly smiled. You guys are quite good at sending your heads to me. And when the others saw this scene, they found it difficult to breathe and felt cold all over. Help! The person in front of them was definitely a devil. Let me tell you, I know the boss of this bar too. If you dare to do anything to me, you definitely won't be able to walk out of this bar. Young Master Ling threatened fiercely, but his legs were already so weak that he could not stand straight. In reality, he was also afraid that this woman would want to kill him with no regard for her life. Was no one really coming to save him? His heart was in agony. At this moment, several bodyguards appeared at the entrance of the long corridor. Young Master Ling, Master Du asked you to return to the private room and wait there. Hearing that, young Master Ling turned around abruptly and stared at them blankly. Master Du? Yes. The bodyguard nodded expressionlessly. In fact, Master Du's original words were that Ling Zixuan couldn't leave the box before he found the person. All right, I'll head back now. Even if he had to crawl, he would crawl back. Young Master Ling had just stood up when a dark glint flashed across his eyes. He suddenly said, "This woman wanted to harm me just now. Master Du asked you to come and find me. Can you help me get rid of her?" After that, a hint of smugness flashed past young Master Ling's eyes as he looked coldly at Pei Yunji. Sooner or later, he would get his revenge on this ungrateful woman. Hearing this, the bodyguard finally noticed Pei Yunji beside him. "Miss, you are?" The bodyguard suddenly remembered that Master Du had asked everyone in the bar to look for a girl named Pei Yunji. "Is it Huashiru?" she suddenly asked. Hearing that, the bodyguard was stunned. For some reason, he felt that the person Master Du was looking for might be right in front of him. Yes. Then take him away. Pei Yunji was also willing to let him go. "Miss, what's your name?" The bodyguard could not help but ask. When Ling Zixuan saw that, he could not help but ask, "This woman almost killed me. Why are you asking for her name? Chapter 33. Why are you asking this? Didn't I ask you to take her away? After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she calmly threw away the knife and prepared to leave. But she did not want to. Before she left the dark corridor, she saw the handsome and noble man in front of her. Their gazes met. Bei Yunj. She was still caught red-handed. Bei Yunj did not know why, but she felt that it was not good to meet this man in a bar. Hua Shida's eyes were dark and his emotions could not be distinguished. Master Du. Ling Zhishuan was overjoyed, but before he could speak. After that, the man chuckled and walked towards the girl with his slender legs under his suit pants. His well-defined hand stretched out lazily from his trouser pocket. He tapped her forehead as a punishment. Who agreed to let you come here, little girl? When this scene fell into the eyes of the others, they were extremely shocked. Master Du knew this girl? Instantly, Ling Zhishuan's underlings could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. What if Master Du found out that they were planning to do something to this girl? I'm 19. Bei Yunj subconsciously retorted. University? The man lowered his pale-colored eyes and asked unhurriedly. Until now, Bei Yunj had just digested the fact that she was a repeater. Hua Shida's gaze swept across Ling Zhishuan and the others. After a while, Bei Yunj heard a voice above her head. It was low and magnetic, making her ears itch. Wait first, I have something to settle. In the private room, Ling Zhishuan swallowed his saliva and knelt by the sofa with weak legs. He had long sobered up. He was waiting for that person to deal with him personally. He really did not expect that this woman would have anything to do with Master Du. Otherwise he would not dare to do this. Not long after, the door of the private room was opened, and a strong white light appeared in front of his eyes. Then, he saw a slender and noble man in a shirt and suit pants walking towards him unhurriedly. Hua Shida looked at Ling Zhishuan, who was kneeling in front of him with a face full of fear. Master Du, I really didn't know that she was your woman. If I knew, I definitely wouldn't want to touch her. Ling Zhishuan hurriedly raised his head to explain, only to see the tall and straight man in front of him raise his hand unhurriedly. He flicked the cigarette ash on his head. Ling Zhishuan didn't dare to dodge, and let the man use his head as an ashtray. Hua Shida said casually, You want to touch her? When Ling Zhishuan heard this, he was almost scared to death. He shook his head frantically, his voice trembling and miserable. Master Du, I wouldn't dare. For my father's sake, can you give me a chance? I promise that if I see that young lady in the future, I will take a detour. At this moment, the atmosphere was so oppressive that it suffocated him. He only felt fear. You're lucky. The little girl is still waiting outside. Hua Shida's words stunned Ling Zhishuan for a moment before he heaved a sigh of relief. However, his body was filled with fatigue because of the tension just now. However, in the next moment, the man bit on the cigarette with a casual expression. As he puffed out the smoke, the mouth of the cigarette turned scarlet. The smell was slightly cold and choking. Then he held the cigarette loosely between his fingers and suddenly raised his hand to press the scarlet cigarette, but on Ling Zhishuan's shoulder. Instantly, the scalding temperature directly burned his skin. The smell of burnt flesh wafted out. Chapter 34. Ling Zhishuan was in extreme pain. He wanted to hide but did not dare to. Even though his entire body was trembling in pain, he had no choice but to endure it. Hua Shida chuckled, his pale-colored eyes cold. He said nonchalantly, I don't want the little girl to be afraid of me. Get lost. In another private room, Bei Yunj looked at the fruits and milk on the table, and could not help but doubt the authenticity of this bar. She walked to the door. Where's your Master Du? Bei Yunj planned to return the money from last time before leaving. Master Du should still be dealing with it. The bodyguard said respectfully, Miss, please wait a little longer. What's there to deal with at the bar? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. The bodyguard glanced at Bei Yunj and hesitated. In the end he only said, Miss, what else do you want to eat? I'll bring it for you. No need, I'll wait a little longer. Bei Yunj had just finished speaking when she saw Huashidu walking over from not far away. Brother, the things you gave me before. Before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, Huashidu interrupted her. Little girl, I'll give you a suggestion. Bei Yunj reacted. What suggestion? Huashidu smiled and threw away the cigarette in his hand. Come with me. It was raining at night. Bei Yunj sat in the car and narrowed her beautiful eyes. She could not help but think that something was wrong. She was indeed quite happy to leave with him. She did not have to face that annoying family. But this man did not seem like someone who liked trouble. I'll stay for a few days and wait for the dormitory application to be approved. I won't cause you any trouble. Bei Yunj added. I can pay the rent according to the market price. The handsome and noble man looked up and smiled faintly. Do you think my house is a hotel? No. Before Bei Yunj could think of what to say, she heard him ask. How long have you not slept? Huashidu saw that her eyes were red like a rabbit. I don't remember. Bei Yunj was used to it. In her previous life, she often had insomnia and many dreams. The doctor said that if her brain's capacity was too large, it would be easier to damage her foundation. If this continued, he wouldn't be able to live long. However, Bei Yunj felt that it was enough for her to live until she was 40 or 50 years old. It's a bit congested, so I'll sleep on the way. Hearing him say this, Bei Yunj agreed casually, but she didn't think she could fall asleep. However, before she could close her eyes, she heard the man's deep voice. Come here, Yunyan. It was probably the first time Bei Yunj had heard someone call her that. She was stunned for a moment. The man wasn't in a hurry either. He just curved his thin red lips and patted his straight and ascetic long legs under his black suit pants. Big brother will give you a pillow. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched, and she laughed again. I don't think it's a good idea. There's nothing bad about it, as long as you don't take advantage of me. The man's eyes were faint, but the corners of his eyes were tilted up. His face was not red and his heart was not beating fast. Seeing that Huashidu was staring straight at her, Bei Yunj sat down without any psychological burden, and leaned against the man's firm long legs. However, Bei Yunj, who had only planned to pretend to be asleep, felt sleepy for the first time after smelling the faint and pleasant fragrance on Huashidu's body. Her beautiful red eyes slowly drooped down. Seeing this, a subtle smile flashed across the man's eyes. Then he remembered and picked up his phone. He sent a message. Found her. I brought her back first. Chapter 35. He lowered his cold eyes and his gaze landed on Bei Yunj carelessly. For a moment he couldn't figure out why he brought her home. When he first saw her, he only thought that she was a pitiful little kitten. She pretended to be obedient and liked to scratch people. She was interesting, but he didn't want to be implicated. Ever since he had dealt with that Ling guy, he had changed his mind. This little girl was too good-looking. If Qin Yu's family couldn't control her, she would be led astray sooner or later. Huashidu hid the darkness in his eyes, and the corners of his lips curled up. Forget it. He rubbed his fingers against her cheek gently. Good night, Yunyan. In the bar, Qin Lang was still looking for someone, feeling anxious and uneasy. At this moment, Qin Yu called. How is it? Have you contacted your friend? Qin Lang asked impatiently. He's already taken her away. Qin Yu added. The person I told you about last time. Where is he? Qin Lang asked immediately. I think he just left. Before Qin Yu could finish speaking, Qin Lang ran out of the bar with his phone tightly in his hand. Mr. Qin? Where are you going? Qin Lang heard the voice behind him, but he didn't turn back and ran out of the bar. It was only when he saw a Lincoln limousine drive away that his eyes flickered. The boy's usually arrogant short silver hair was wet and stuck to his face in a sorry state. The rain slid down his cheeks. His eyes were slightly red as he stared into the distance where the car had disappeared. His fists were clenched tightly. His heart was empty and painful. After arriving, the moment the car door opened, the warmth inside was eroded by the cold water vapor. Only then did Bei Yunj wake up sleepily. She rubbed her eyes and only regained her senses after a while. Had she fallen asleep just now? You're awake? Huashidu didn't expect Bei Yunj to wake up so quickly. From the looks of it, the little fellow probably hadn't slept for a few days. Bei Yunj didn't organize her words and asked without thinking. Does brother sleep alone? After asking, Bei Yunj suddenly felt that her question was quite hooligan. However, sleep was too tempting for Bei Yunj. At this moment, Hwashidu did not expect this young lady to be so direct. His gaze was deep and there was a mischievous glint in his eyes, but his lazy tone was drawn out. Yunyan, you're an adult now. Control yourself. After entering Hwashida's villa, Bei Yunj realized that it was more than twice the size of the Qin family's villa. However, the style was simple and elegant. From the exterior of the wall to the layout of the space, it was very comfortable. What about Eris? After Bei Yunj asked, she realized that Hwashidu was on the phone. She's with Xiaoma in the old house. After Hwashidu finished speaking, he instructed the person on the other end of the line, make some hangover soup and send it over. After hanging up, he looked at Bei Yunj and said, drink the hangover soup before you sleep. You're not allowed to go to the bar next time. All right. Bei Yunj replied absent-mindedly, but she was thinking about how to stay by Hwashida's side for a longer time. Just now in the car, it could be said that it was the first time in more than 10 years that she had slept soundly, and it was all because of the man in front of her. Soon, the older maid who delivered the hangover soup walked into the hall. When she saw Bei Yunj, she was surprised. Auntie, is this prepared for me? Bei Yunj sat on the sofa and looked at her with her chin in her hand. Her eyes were curved. I think so. Chapter 36. Thank you, Auntie. After Bei Yunj took it, she lowered her head and drank it. Miss, just call me Auntie Meow. Auntie Meow liked this girl very much at first sight. She looked very lively, and was much more likable than those girls the old madam had chosen. Auntie Meow, my name is Bei Yunj. You can call me Yunj. Auntie Meow immediately shook her head. We can't mess with the rules. I'll call you Miss Yunj. Hearing this, Bei Yunj didn't insist. And Auntie Meow didn't expect Master Du to bring a girl home. She secretly thought that she had to report this to the old madam quickly. The next day, Hongda, Year 2 Class 7. The teacher on the podium was furious. Lu Yuanxi, are you getting more and more unruly? You didn't wear your school uniform and didn't bring your homework? Lu Yuanxi didn't care. Instead, he looked out of the door and wondered why that person hadn't come yet. Did you hear what I said? Is there a student who is more arrogant than you in this school? With that said, a trace of impatience flashed past Lu Yuanxi's eyes. He turned around and was about to speak, but he heard a voice at the door, reporting. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the door. They saw a girl with black hair, red lips, and snow-white skin standing lazily in a school skirt. Her beautiful eyes made people's hearts itch. However, the teacher's attention had always been sharp. A transfer student? Yes. The teacher took a deep breath. Where's your bag? Bei Yunj thought for a moment and said honestly. I forgot to bring it. Everyone was speechless. The person in front didn't bring her homework and wasn't wearing her school uniform. This person didn't even bring her bag to school. Each one was wilder than the other. Bei Yunj's bag was in the Qin family. Indeed, she couldn't go to get it early in the morning, but she couldn't be bothered to explain so much. Okay, I think your class 7 is really a backdoor class. The teacher was burning with anger. Teacher, can a transfer student replace our class? Ling Jiwei, who had a feud with Bei Yunj before, said with a strange smile. Can we stop the school from inserting someone into our class? That's right. I heard that the high school in Jiangpu district doesn't have a good spirit. The undergraduate rate is not even 40%. Another girl chimed in, her tone arrogant and superior. They had always looked down on students with poor grades and poor family backgrounds. So what if Bei Yunj is related to the Qin family? Was her surname Qin? Why was a poor relative of Qin Youjiao acting so arrogant in front of them? Do you think that if it weren't for your parents' generous resources, you would have been able to get into the university? The physics teacher asked expressionlessly. Immediately, the few of them wanted to say something but stopped. They could only shut their mouths angrily. The physics teacher had always been stubborn and did not care how rich the students were. Both of you, copy the key points of the physics textbook 3 times as punishment after class. Give it to me this week. The physics teacher was furious. In all his years of teaching, he had never seen such a mischievous student. All right. When Lu Yuanxi heard Bai Yunji's response, he could only frown and nod. However, then the physics teacher realized that these 2 troublesome students were desk mates. Lu Yuanxi had forgotten to bring his physics book, while the other had brought nothing at all. They couldn't even read together. The physics teacher took a few deep breaths before facing them calmly. Find someone to read together. With that said, Lu Yuanxi's friends quickly asked him to sit over and read. Chapter 37. Lu Yuanxi frowned. None of the girls in the class seemed to be on good terms with Bai Yunji. Just as he was about to pass the book to Bai Yunji, he heard her say carelessly, "Teacher, I'll just listen to you." Then, as soon as she said this, a chubby boy next to her spoke carefully. "Classmate Pai, do you want to read it with me?" Bai Yunji's eyes flashed and her gaze fell on him unhurriedly. Not long after, Bai Yunji sat beside him. "What's your name?" "My name is Chu Zhixing." The chubby boy looked shy. His face was chubby, but his eyes were not small and his nose bridge was high. He was fair and tender and wore a clean school uniform. He did not leave a good impression at all. "It's quite nice." Bai Yunji curled her lips and replied, "My name is Bai Yunji." Chu Zhixing was stunned for a moment. His heart was inexplicably touched, and his eyes were sore. Bai Yunji knew that he knew her name, but this was just a self-introduction out of respect. For so many years, he had almost never been treated fairly and respectfully. This seemingly unruly person in front of him had become the first person to treat him as an equal. Chu Zhixing hid the darkness in his eyes. At the same time, Ling Jiwei, who was originally prepared to laugh at Bai Yunji, had an ugly expression on her face. She glanced at Chu Zhixing viciously. She sneered. This damn fatty actually dared to interfere in her affairs. Last night, she had already warned everyone in the class and the private class group not to be nice to Bai Yunji. Who would have thought that there would still be someone who didn't know what was good for them to interfere? After class, someone told her that her school bag had been sent to the security room and asked her to go over and get it. Unexpectedly, Bai Yunji had just come back with her bag when she bumped into Lu Yuanxi on the way. "Don't walk too close to Chu Zhixing. There's something wrong with this person." Lu Yuanxi frowned. He had seen Chu Zhixing secretly injecting drugs in the toilet before. Although it did not seem to be illegal drugs, it was really as the rumors said. Chu Zhixing was a monster. "Really?" Bai Yunji raised her eyebrows and smiled, but no one knew what she was thinking. Seeing this, Lu Yuanxi wanted to continue speaking but stopped himself. Was he crazy? Why do you care about Bai Yunji? This woman would not listen to him at all. "Up to you," Lu Yuanxi said expressionlessly and left. Noon. Bai Yunji was about to go back to the classroom after getting some water in the corridor. But suddenly he heard a painful whimper from the corner. "Damn fatty, are you the only one who dares to meddle in other people's business?" It was Ling Jiwei's voice, sharp and mean. "I didn't see you so bold in the past, but now you've learned how to be a hero saving a damsel in distress?" At this moment, Bai Yunji soon found out who might have been beaten up. She stopped in her tracks and quickly turned to the corner. At the blind spot of the surveillance camera, the chubby boy was covered in dirty water. Other than Ling Jiwei and the other 2 girls, there were a few other boys beside him who were kicking Chu Zhixing with all their might. He looked thin and tall like a gangster. Let me go." The chubby boy's face was abnormally pale, as if he was suffering some kind of pain. He frowned and broke out in a cold sweat. "Sure. Son, kneel down and admit your mistake, and I'll let you go. How about that?" The skinny monkey-like boy deliberately mocked and humiliated him. He did not forget to add another kick to his foot. Chu Zhixing was in so much pain that his entire body trembled. "Look at this fat pig. He's trembling so much that his flesh is moving." Chapter 38. The skinny monkey-like boy took out his phone and aimed it at Chu Zhixing. "Come look over here, fat pig." He smiled as he filmed and patted Chu Zhixing's head from time to time. "I'm talking to you." However, Chu Zhixing's entire body was trembling as uncontrollable ruthlessness and gloominess appeared in his eyes from time to time. A voice kept echoing in his mind. Kill them, and everything would be fine. He should send these bastards to hell." Just as Chu Zhixing's eyes turned colder, and the corners of his lips were about to curl up, suddenly, a familiar voice sounded by his ear. "What are you doing?" The evil and madness in Chu Zhixing's eyes dissipated instantly, and he turned his head instinctively. Ling Jiwei and the rest also turned their heads instinctively. "You still dare to come? I haven't settled the score with you for what happened last time." Ling Jiwei laughed coldly with a dark expression. "Are you the one who bullied Wei Wei?" The leading boy's eyes landed on Bei Yunj with ill intentions. He was indeed good-looking, and even Qin Youjiao could not compare to him. Bei Yunj walked past him and stopped beside Chu Zhixing, glancing at him, who was in a terrible state. "Who did this?" Bei Yunj asked, pretending to be calm. "Little girl, don't bother about seniors' matters." The boy had one hand in his pocket, and the other holding his phone as he continued to film Chu Zhixing's face. But in the next second, a slender and fair hand suddenly snatched his phone away. "You dash." The boy could not react for a moment. Bei Yunj casually glanced at the video the boy had recorded. With a light flick of her fingers, she opened his photo album. There were all kinds of videos inside. It was not only Chu Zhixing's but also other people's. "You're quite good at playing." Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes curled up and the ruthlessness in his eyes grew bit by bit, but his smile was beautiful. The boy, who did not notice at all, happened to see Bei Yunj's smile. His heart itched, and he was about to reach out and put his hand on Bei Yunj's shoulder. In the next second, the sound of the phone falling to the ground was not soft. Before the boy could react, he saw Bei Yunj stepping on it carelessly. The crisp sound of the phone breaking stunned everyone. "What are you doing?" The boy's face quickly darkened. "Who did you want to kneel just now?" Bei Yunj asked. The boy's face gradually turned ferocious and he sneered. "You dare to meddle in my business? Kneel." Bei Yunj looked up and glanced at Chu Zhixing. "Of course someone has to kneel. You're only scared now? How dare you smash my new phone? Even if you want to." The boy gritted his teeth and didn't have time to finish his sentence. The girl in front of him suddenly curled her lips and smashed the glass in her hand onto the ground. The glass shard shattered into pieces, making one's heart tremble. "What's the hurry? Not a single one of you will be missing today." Bei Yunj licked her rosy lips, looking cynical. Under the sunlight, her ink-black eyes sent chills down one's spine. Ling Jiwei subconsciously retreated in fear. However, when the boy looked at the girl whose wrist was so thin that it seemed like it would break with a twist, he couldn't help but laugh wantonly. "Little girl, you're so awesome." After laughing, he looked at Bei Yunj disdainfully and said, Wei Wei, just watch from the side and see how Brother Qian will help you vent your anger." Hearing this, Ling Jiwei's expression softened. "Brother Qian, don't worry. The school won't find trouble with you." Ling Jiwei's words were vague, but she clearly told him that it didn't matter if he crippled Bei Yunj. Chapter 39. Is that so? Then today, the things that can be filmed will be even more exciting. The boy stared at Bei Yunj gloomily, and his laughter made people uncomfortable. Chu Zhixing immediately panicked. He, a boy, felt humiliated to be filmed like this. Not to mention Bei Yunj, a girl. "Student Pei, hurry up and leave." Chu Zhixing gritted his teeth and held his abdomen as he insisted. When the boy heard this, his face was full of violence. This fat pig really dared to interfere. "I think you're really King courting death." The boy turned his head and raised his fist, punching Chu Zhixing's cheek. But then, just as Chu Zhixing subconsciously closed his eyes and waited for the pain to come, he didn't feel any movement for a long time. After a while, Chu Zhixing's eyelids moved and he narrowed his eyes tentatively. He saw Bei Yunj holding the boy's arm with one hand. Chu Zhixing wasn't the only one who was shocked by this scene. Even the boys and Ling Jiwei beside him had their smiles frozen on their faces. He borrowed my book. Are you going to hit him in front of me? A second ago, Bei Yunj was still smiling as if she was discussing with someone. The next second, she suddenly grabbed the back of the boy's collar. She dragged him into a blind spot, as if she was dragging a bag of trash. The boy's face turned red as his collar tightened. He struggled desperately, but it was to no avail. The next moment, he was thrown against the wall, and his bones made muffled sounds. Brother Qian. A few of his underlings immediately wanted to go forward, but then they saw Bei Yunj punch Brother Qian in the face. Her movements were clean and neat, but her eyes were fierce and ruthless. Do you know what happens to trash? Bei Yunj asked lightly. However, the people around felt their hair stand on end. You need to be taught a lesson. You. The boy was in so much pain that his brain was spinning, but before he could finish speaking, Bei Yunj raised her knee and slammed it into the boy's abdomen. Ah! The boy bent down in pain, trembling as he clutched his stomach. Stand properly. Bei Yunj's tone was lazy. This was really the first time she had encountered someone who made people stand still and take a beating. The boy was obviously afraid of this ruthless person. He endured the pain and slowly straightened his back. Pei, classmate Pei, please take your classmate away. I promise I won't look for him again. Sorry for the trouble. Wait for him to find a few more people outside the school. Do you have to kill this woman? Student Pei, forget it. Chu Zhixing couldn't help but say. He hated these people, but they were not worth Bei Yunj's punishment. Before the boy could heave a sigh of relief, he saw Bei Yunj's red lips curl up and her slender, fair hand gently patting his face. Kneel on your own. Or do you need me to help you? When the boy heard this, his face turned pale. Bei Yunj, aren't you afraid of being kicked out of Hongda for doing this? Ling Jiwei's voice was anxious and sharp, and it even trembled a little. She really did not expect Bei Yunj to treat them this way. Don't worry, you're next. Bei Yunj glanced at her slowly and said in a cold voice. Ling Jiwei's heart suddenly turned cold. The next moment, Bei Yunj grabbed the boy's collar and said, You don't want to choose? I've already chosen for you. As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj suddenly let go of the boy and kicked him in the back. The boy screamed and threw himself at the glass shards on the ground. There were not many shards, but there was still a piece that pierced the flesh of his thigh. Blood dyed the ground red. The boy's face was full of pain, and he screamed again. My leg, my leg. Ling Jiwei's pupils shrank when she saw this scene. Chapter 40. Her pretty face was pale. Bei Yunj, how dare you make a move in school? It wasn't until Bei Yunj's gaze shifted to her that Ling Jiwei couldn't help but scream. My father is the vice president of a listed company. Bei Yunj, you can't touch me. At this moment, Bei Yunj had just raised her eyes, but before she could turn her head, she heard a weak hiss of pain beside her. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw that Chu Zhixing's breathing was erratic. His face was abnormally pale, and he looked like he had a relapse. What's wrong with you? Bei Yunj turned around and walked to Chu Zhixing's side. Ling Jiwei and the others saw this and immediately ran away. But at this time, Bei Yunj didn't have the time to care about them. Chu Zhixing's eyes flickered and his pale lips moved. He wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't want Bei Yunj to think that he was a monster. Do you need medicine? An injection? Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's entire body stiffened. In fact, Bei Yunj had noticed at first glance that there were several needle holes on the inside of Chu Zhixing's elbow. I'll take you to the infirmary first. No, Chu Zhixing's voice was hoarse. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Bei Yunj's eyes. Even his biological mother was afraid and distant when she saw him having a relapse. He gritted his teeth and endured it, but his eyes were bloodshot. His voice was so suppressed that it trembled. I'll be fine after resting for a while. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's faint voice sounded. You don't want me to kick you a few times to wake you up, do you? Chu Zhixing. If you're sick, then treat it. Do you understand? Who doesn't have illnesses and pains? Chu Zhixing paused and subconsciously raised his head to look at Bei Yunj. The girl in front of him only had her usual laziness and a little impatience on her face. She didn't have the fear and disgust that he saw in the eyes of others. She didn't treat him as a monster. Her impatience was real. She had originally scheduled a conference call with the people from the Computing Institute. Now she had stood them up. You have such a good temper. Chu Zhixing lowered his head and muttered. Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched. Can you get up? I can. Chu Zhixing nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. He tried his best to get up, but he almost fell. It was Bei Yunji who helped her up. Bei Yunji pondered in silence. She knew very well that she was the one who had caused this incident. I'm sorry. Chu Zhixing's expression was not very good, but when he reacted, he hurriedly shook his head. I was willing to lend it to you. You didn't force me. Bei Yunji glanced at him. A short while later, just when Chu Zhixing thought that Bei Yunji did not want to speak, he heard her speak again. Next time, you can look for me if you need anything. Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's eyes almost turned hot. He gritted his teeth and looked at her hopefully. Can I follow you in the future? Infirmary. Bei Yunji had just sent a text message to the Computing Institute when she walked to the door. Classmate, did you send classmate Chu here? The infirmary teacher was a young woman with neat bangs. She looked gentle and cute and wore glasses. Yes. Bei Yunji asked. Teacher, how's Chu Zhixing? His condition is very bad, but fortunately, you sent him here in time. The infirmary teacher was helpless. This child is actually quite pitiful. He's bullied every 2 to 3 days. Has he always been injected with drugs? Yes. He rarely comes to the infirmary because he's afraid of being seen. Bei Yunji was deep in thought. Chu Zhixing, who was sitting on the hospital bed, looked gloomy. He thought about how Bei Yunji had rejected him just now. Chapter 41. Was it because he was too weak that classmate Pei didn't want to get close to him? Are you hungry? Bei Yunji's voice sounded. Chu Zhixing looked up and saw Bei Yunji biting on a lollipop as she placed the snacks in the plastic bag in front of him. Teach, thank you. Chu Zhixing was flattered. Bei Yunji's quiet eyes were lowered as if she was thinking about something. Chu Zhixing didn't dare to make a sound for a moment. Then she asked, do you want me to protect you? No. I can become stronger, and I can also protect classmate Pei. Chu Zhixing became less and less confident as he spoke. Bei Yunji's eyes darkened when she heard this. The corners of her lips slowly curled up, and she suddenly asked with interest. Do you know how to fight? Chu Zhixing's body stiffened, and he slowly lowered his head. Then how do you want to protect me? Bei Yunji smiled slowly. This wasn't the first time she heard someone say that he could protect her. However, she still felt a sense of anticipation that she hadn't felt in a long time. Back in the classroom, the class monitor asked Bei Yunji for her WeChat and invited her to join the class group. Only then did she remember this matter. She glanced at the WeChat account that the original owner used and chose to create a new account. After joining the group chat, Bei Yunji didn't pay much attention to it. Instead, she entered a phone number. A user with the nickname Du appeared. Seeing this, Bei Yunji's lips curled up a little, and she exited the friend request. Her slender index finger tapped on the button to change the nickname. After thinking for a moment, she lazily entered a new name. Not long after, Hua Group. The phone on the desk suddenly vibrated. Hua Shidu picked up the phone without looking up. After opening the message, he opened his thin eyelids. His gaze fell lightly on the screen. Brother's little nightingale has requested to add you as a friend. After a while, Hua Shida's eyes were so dark that it was hard to tell. He lowered his voice and laughed. Child, you're lawless. In the afternoon, as expected, Bei Yunji was called to the office again. She pushed the door open and entered. She saw a mature and steady middle-aged man sitting on the sofa, chatting with the principal. Principal, are you looking for me? When Bei Yunji smiled, her eyes were especially clear. It was hard to imagine that she was a student who would hurt others. Did you injure Qian Qingjun? The principal asked with a solemn expression. Back then, the Qin family had donated a building to Hengda in order to get this student in. However, when he heard the gossip later, he realized that she was not an illegitimate daughter of the Qin family, or a child of some relationship. She was just a poor relative who wanted to rely on the Qin family, and insisted that the Qin family transfer her to another school. Yes, Bei Yunj replied. What do your parents do? The middle-aged man in a suit asked. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows slightly. I grew up in an orphanage. Hearing this, the middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. He seemed to think that she was bold. Then do you know who Qian Qingjun is? The future successor of the Qian family company. Student pay. Do you know the price you have to pay for your actions? The middle-aged man smiled with deep wrinkles, but his eyes were cold. Price? Bei Yunj asked. You want my son to kneel on the glass? I'll give you two choices. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. You can either be expelled or kneel on the glass. President Qian this matter. The principal was also a little anxious. After all, the Qin family had donated a building. However, after President Qian glared at him, the principal could only shut up. Chapter 42. Class 1. Yu Jiao, does that poor relative of yours know? Someone ran towards Qin Youjiao excitedly. What? Qin Youjiao's eyes darkened. She beat up that Qian Qingjun. He's the rich young master who crippled a student and transferred to our school. The girl's tone was agitated. Qin Youjiao frowned. How is that possible? How could Bei Yunj beat Qian Qingjun? It's true. Now Qian Qingjun's father is here to settle scores with her. He's in the principal's office. A strange glint flashed past Qin Youjiao's eyes, and the corners of her lips twitched. I'm going to the washroom. Qin Youjiao stood up and walked towards the door. At the end of the corridor, Qin Youjiao called Mrs. Qin. Mrs. Qin picked up the call quickly and said gently, Jiao Jiao, aren't you in school? What's wrong? Mom, something seems to have happened to Bei Yunj in school. After Qin Youjiao told Mrs. Qin what she had heard, Mrs. Qin fell silent. Why don't you come to school? I don't want others to think that you're not good to your biological daughter. Qin Youjiao acted obedient. Jiao Jiao, go to class first. Mom will think about it. With that said, Mrs. Qin hung up the call. However, Qin Youjiao laughed, certain that Mrs. Qin would come. Of course, she was not doing this for Bei Yunj's sake. She wanted Mrs. Qin to see the difference between her and Bei Yunj. With Mrs. Qin's personality, she would only hate Bei Yunj even more. In the Qin family's old manner, Mrs. Qin and Mr. Qin were on the phone. Her eyes were red and she broke down. I told you not to bring her back, and just give her money. Look at how much face she has embarrassed me. Mr. Qin comforted her. Go and take a look first. I can't leave the company. I'm telling you, if she causes any more trouble for the family, I'll definitely chase her out. Mrs. Qin hung up the call and accidentally saw herself in the mirror. His face was filled with anger and disgust, causing her to be stunned. Pursing her lips, she picked up her bag and left. In the principal's office. Have you thought about it? Do you want to drop out of school or come back on your knees? Mr. Qian asked with a gloomy smile. If he hadn't seen with his own eyes how badly his son was injured, he would have thought that it was a prank. For so many years, no one had dared to treat his son like this. Uncle, are you threatening me? Bei Yunj's pretty eyes looked up, not showing any fear at all. Chairman Qian pursed his lips coldly. If you don't choose either of them, then I can only. Before he could finish his sentence, there was a knock on the door. Everyone turned around. They did not expect the person to be Mother Qin. Mrs. Qin, why are you here? The principal's eyelids twitched. He didn't expect Mother Qin to come in person. Could it be that this poor relative was very favored in the Qin family? When Mother Qin saw Bei Yunj's nonchalant expression, she became even angrier. She restrained her impulse, walked forward coldly, and grabbed Bei Yunj's arm. Bei Yunj, do you not want to study at all? Do you want to be a good-for-nothing? The temperature in Bei Yunj's eyes gradually dropped. Mrs. Qin, please have some self-respect. Bei Yunj curled her lips into a half-smile and slowly pulled her hand away. Mother Qin saw this and couldn't help but laugh coldly. She was about to explode from Bei Yunj's stubborn attitude. Mrs. Qin. Chairman Qian was also surprised when he saw Mother Qin. Didn't this student say that she grew up in an orphanage? Chapter 43. Mrs. Chin took a deep breath and adjusted her image back to that of an elegant lady. President Qian. Mrs. Chin nodded slightly at President Qian. President Qian said, "This student is Mrs. Chin's." A trace of panic flashed past Mrs. Chin's eyes, but she forced herself to remain calm. "A girl I brought home some time ago." These words made Pei Yunj glance at her with a sneer, but she quickly looked away. Mrs. Chin had always doted on Qin Youjiao. She was even stronger than her other 3 brothers. Not to mention Bei Yunj, who came back halfway. Therefore, when Mr. Chin proposed to reveal Bei Yunj's identity, Mrs. Chin was the first to object. "I've heard about what happened between the 2 of you." Mrs. Chin took a deep breath and looked at Bei Yunj, saying expressionlessly, "If it's true, then let her bear the legal consequences." When she said this, Mrs. Chin kept staring at Bei Yunj. She was waiting for Bei Yunj to show weakness. Her hands were trembling. No matter what, this good-for-nothing person was her biological daughter. As long as Bei Yunj showed weakness, she would intervene and settle it. But in the future, she would transfer Bei Yunj to another school. She could not affect Jiao. At this moment, the door was suddenly kicked open. Qin Lang seemed to have run all the way here. He was panting and his short silver-gray hair was messy. "Where's Gu?" Qin Lang was called over by the principal. When he saw Mrs. Chin, he was also surprised. "Mom." Mrs. Chin's expression was terrible. "Why are you here?" Qin Lang's gaze gradually calmed down, and he walked in front of Bei Yunj to face President Qian. "Do you have any evidence that Gu'er injured your son?" Qin Lang's tone was mocking and his handsome face was cold. "Qin Lang, shut up." Mrs. Chin's expression darkened. Qin Lang glanced at Mrs. Chin and snorted before he pulled Bei Yunj's hand. "Gu'er, let's go. 3rd brother will take you back." "Qin Lang, you." Mrs. Chin's eyes were almost red. At this moment, Bei Yunj did not move and broke free from his hand. "I did," Bei Yunj said calmly. Qin Lang's body stiffened. It took him a while to react. Tears welled up in his eyes. Gu'er was already unwilling to forgive him. Even if she had to bear the consequences, Gu'er did not want to have anything to do with him. "Gu'er, don't be afraid. 3rd brother will protect you. I'm warning you, Qin Lang. You only have one sister, and she's in class 1. Mother Qin interrupted coldly. Suddenly, Mr. Qian said, "Since he's a relative of the Qin family, let's just treat it as a small fight. As long as this student is willing to apologize to my son and take a detour when he sees my son in the future, I will treat it as if nothing happened." Mrs. Chin's eyes flashed and she asked coldly, "Bei Yunj, do you admit your mistake?" "No need." Bei Yunj chuckled, and the corners of her bright red lips curled up. "Someone needs to drop out of school." Good. Bei Yunj, you're really capable." Mrs. Chin was so angry that her head was spinning. How could she have given birth to such a person? Why couldn't she compare to Jiao? "Student Pei, have you thought it through?" Gloominess flashed across Mr. Qian's eyes as he hid a cold smile. There weren't many people who would be stupid at this juncture. However, it was best if he could avenge his son. "Of course." Bei Yunj lowered her eyes and chuckled. Her slender index finger tapped lightly on the table. It was as if she was waiting for something. After that, before Mr. Qian could speak, 4 or 5 uniformed personnel suddenly rushed in. "Hello, who is Qianjinya? Please follow us back to the Institute for Investigation." That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.